everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Plug in Play podcast. I am your host, Henry, and this is your checkpoint for video game news, reviews, and hot takes that nobody asked for. On this episode, did you know that Microsoft is dying? It's flailing around on the table, and we need to resuscitate it, or we can let it pass gently into the night. And I will be talking about the studios that Microsoft is considering shutting down, your favorites perhaps. You'll have to tune in to find out who will survive the culling of Microsoft Xbox division. We are also going to go over the Nintendo Direct, the most watched Direct of all of Summer Games Fest, or not E3, as some people would prefer to call it. We'll go through every game. In case you missed it, you'll get my hot takes and opinions for every one of them. It'll be spectacular. And for impressions, we have a very interesting one. I love to say interesting. It's probably my favorite adjective when describing the show or segments of the show. But in this case, it is very odd. It's Baby Steps. I finished Baby Steps from Bennett Foddy, who you may know as the creator and developer of Getting Over It, a rage game made for streamers to get mad at, and for some reason I felt like I should play it to try and have fun. We'll get into that in impressions, and we'll see if it was a life-changing experience for me or nay. But before we start the show, ladies and gentlemen, I have some housekeeping to do. Specifically, you may be listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, or any of your favorite podcast services. We're all over the place. You can give us a review. 5 stars is preferable. I am not a dictator. I will allow you to rate whatever you wish, but in this capitalist society, I will heavily encourage, and if you reach out to our plug-and-play-podcast at gmail.com, it's in the description if I said it wrong. I will happily slide you some funds for a good 5-star review. But anyways, please give us a review. While you're there, why not give us a follow? We're on every social media platform out there, I promise. Or at least, a good number of them, the big ones. Twitter or X, whatever you prefer, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We upload shorts there every single day. That's right, every day. If you just can't get enough of me and my wonderful nasally voice, you can hear it every day in short form at Plug in Play Pod 1 on any of those services. Please give us a follow, give us a like. If you're there, you can also leave a comment. And when you leave a comment, you will have a possibility of being read out on the show. I love reading comments. It's one of my favorite things to do, as long as you're not angry with me and making me rethink ever doing a podcast in the first place. I heavily enjoy reading comments and engaging and discussing with people in the comments. So please leave a comment there, and you may just be a part of the comment corner segment of the show. We love doing it. And while you're down in the description, I kind of jumped out of order. I already talked about the plug and play podcast 1 at gmail.com email address. But if you can't remember that, you can go to the description. And there are timestamps. If you don't like something I'm saying and you want to hear me say something else, or vice versa, then you can go to the bottom of this description and you can click on the timestamps, and the timestamps will just take you wherever you want to go. It's like a magic teleportation podcasting device. But it's a labor of love. I do it for you. And that, my friends, is it. That is all of the housekeeping. Wonderful. Okay, so now we're into the show proper, right? I'm off the script. So lovely to be back. Summer Games Fest, technically, according to this podcast, is not over. So I stopped recording as of Friday of 2 weeks ago, and the Nintendo Direct was on a Monday. So, of course, I just missed the cutoff for my normal upload times. So I am, of course, talking about something that's 2 weeks old and you don't care about anymore. But I'm going to talk about it anyway because it was a big deal at the time. But Summer Games Fest, I think, was a bang. It was a sweet deal. It was a fun time. I think everybody can agree. It felt like E3 of old. All the big publishers, all the big brands were out there. minus a few. We used to have EA had their own press conference, and Ubisoft used to have their own press conference, and Bethesda, for a short while, had their own press conference at E3. And those were easily like the most lackluster press conferences for the vast majority of E3's existence, but all of those publishers seem to have really stepped away from ever needing one again. I mean, you look at Ubisoft and it's just kind of flailing around hoping anybody cares about what it's doing. And then EA really doesn't care about doing anything other than sports games anymore. It's really their bread and butter. And they've shut down every studio that could make anything other than that. And so why would they need a conference to just say, yeah, another sports game. We have another one coming out. Yeah, it will make, you'll buy it. Millions of people will buy it. You don't really need that. And then Bethesda got acquired, obviously, by Microsoft. Who knows how long that will be for, as we'll get into later on the show. But they are acquired by Microsoft now, and they eventually folded that conference into the Microsoft conference and did like a joint. I think it's just kind of a little bit less than that now. It's just like, here are the Bethesda games. It's not like this is the Bethesda segment of the show. It's just, it's now Microsoft. Like, Bethesda is one of us now, which I think is appropriate. But anyways, E3 has been slimmed down a bit. The industry has consolidated and kind of focused on what makes a little bit more sense monetarily, or just died, one of the two. So, it is what it is. but it was good to see the big players still out there and still having, Jeff Keighley make Summer Games Fest. That presentation was a lot more fun than I gave it credit for before going in. I thought it would be boring as frick, but it was not. It was actually entertaining. So I didn't want to fall asleep during it at any point during commercials. So all said, pretty satisfying Summer Games Fest. Speaking of which, so I had a couple of clips go up on the socials, and people commented on them regarding some of my impressions and concerns for the games that were shown at these showcases, you could say. I had two comments I'm going to read out. And again, appreciate everybody who comments in the comments on any platform, regardless of what you're saying or how right I am or how wrong I am. Mostly wrong, but in this case, however you're interacting, I appreciate it. In this case, this is a comment. So I had one of the more divisive. I expected it to be way more of a divisive received clip than I got. I posted a clip regarding the God of War Laufey reveal, which seemed to be incredibly controversial at the time of showing. People were very unhappy that there was a female protagonist, that it was a spin-off. Seems to be the main criticism I seem to be seeing from people, is they think that it should be a game about Kratos because it's a God of War game. And I'm just like, bro, it's a spin-off. Like, I don't know what you want. Like, a spin-off doesn't have to be about the main character. In fact, that's typically not what a spin-off is it's about something different within that universe. Like, that's just kind of normal for a spin-off, right? But anyways, people were complaining about a bunch of nonsense for that game. If you're sick of Santa Monica games or you wanted them to make something else, that's a totally valid criticism. But like, just saying I wanted to see Kratos in here and this is not who I wanted to see in this game, I don't know if that's like a reason to be really upset. But anyways, I posted a criticism about people basically making fun of them, saying, hey, if you're just making fun of it because of this, you're being a little silly. Like a female protagonist should not be the height of your concerns. It should be, maybe gameplay or, anything really else, to be quite frank. As long as the game is fun, it shouldn't matter who you're playing as. So in this case, Mr. J. Jovic C. Robert. Look, it's hard to decipher some people's usernames, so bear with me. But we're going to call him Jovic C. Robert. He gave me a wonderful comment. I love this one so much that I wanted to read it out on the show. So he says, and by the way, this is I said that the main character, that was another criticism I saw floating about, was that the original actress, or the actress who's playing Lao Fei, She is, or Faye, you can say that's her name in the actual games, but the actress who's playing Faye, she is much younger than the age of the character in the game. The age of the character is like a mom. She's given birth to Atreus and she's lived a long life and all that other stuff because she's a god. In this case, she's aged up, so she looks a lot older in the game than she does in real life. And so I called her a MILF. I said, oh well, she's an attractive older woman. She's an attractive actress who's been aged up. She's a MILF. So that's context for what Mr. Robert has to say. He says, game looked like, quote, Coochie struggle with having feelings about it simulator 3000 deluxe. This looks like a MILF to you? Dude, you can do way better. We will find you something, no problem. But in order to succeed, you need to stop talking, okay? I appreciated that greatly. It's not often that people on the internet are, vouching for my ability to pull women. In fact, I think that is one of the highest compliments I've ever received on a comment, that I can pull somebody hotter than a professional actress in a AAA video game. I'm very pleased with that, and I mean, I haven't reached out to see what his strategy necessarily is beyond me just not talking. But in general, I think I appreciate the sentiment there, and I also think his description of Coochie's struggle while having feelings about it simulator 3000 deluxe is maybe emblematic of my point. That people are upset that it's a female protagonist. But anyways, thank you for the comment, Mr. Robert. I appreciate you commenting. That genuinely gave me a good chuckle, so I appreciate it. But getting into an actual comment to kind of get into some topic of discussion. I had a clip of Stellar Blade Rain. Blood Rain? Blood Rain, I think, is the name of the subtitle for Stellar Blade sequel. But Stellar Blade, the Korean action game, Souls-like DMC-esque kind of combo game, Gunner game, as a lot of people would prefer to call it, focuses a lot on the sexuality of its main character, and specifically not the sexuality, meaning if she's like gay or straight or whatever. It's about specifically just, hey, look at how hot she is. That's pretty much the main focal point of that game, at least visually. So anyways, Stellar Blade. I played Stellar Blade very recently, actually, and I had given opinions on this podcast that it is an 8 out of 10 game. It is a game that I think is good, but not great. It has significant flaws. It could be improved. It's okay. Like, I would not say it's a bad game, but I wouldn't say it's a great game either. I was not like head over heels for this game at all. So, in response to that, this is not the only comment, by the way. This is just the one I chose. This is the reason I'm bringing it up, is because this is something that multiple people did approach me about in the comments section across TikTok and Instagram. So here we have Mr. J. Mascio, who says, acting like an 8 out of 10 isn't a good score. It will likely be a good game, but not great, and that's fine. Now, it seems like, based on what I just said, that we agree. Like, Stellar Blade sequel will be an 8 out of 10, and that means it's good and not great, right? Which is fine. That's fine. Here's the thing, is I think in video game discussion, and in general, really, let's be frank, we have a weird way of ranking our games. As a video game community, if you look at Metacritic, it's something I've always been interested in, is like, if you look at movie reviews and you look at video game reviews, like movies can frequently get into, like, a bad movie can get like a 30 on Metacritic. Like, that's a normal review score. Like a 7, like if you get a 70 out of 100 on Metacritic for a film, that's a pretty solid movie. Like, that most people agreed that movie was pretty good and worth watching. For a video game, if you get a 3, God help you. The last game that got a 3 was Redfall from Bethesda. That was considered an absolute train wreck, a studio killing game that should have never been made, and a 7 out of 10? A 7 out of 10 means like, oh frick. Nobody really wanted to play this game that much. Like, it was a very mixed game. Not that many people liked it. Some people liked it, but it was because like it still had a lot of flaws to it that a lot of people are going to be off put by, and it's going to be hard to recommend a 7 out of 10 game. You're going to have to find the right person really to find a 7 out of 10 game to give to somebody. Like, you have to know it's right within that person's tastes if it's a 7 out of 10. So we as a video game community typically rate things higher. We have a I'm not going to say a higher standard for good games, but we have a much more generous scale. Really, like, a video game scale goes from 6 to 10. There really is no in between, you really don't have anything that's below a 6. Like, like I said, if you're below a 6 in the video game scale, you are in trouble. That's a game that you'll have a marred reputation in the video game industry forever because you put out a 5 or below out of 10 game. Like, that's just, people will remember your game because it was so bad. So here's what I have to say about my scale. And I will say that my scale has been horrifically corrupted by the American education system, in which a 70 is considered average and it's considered passing, and a D or a 6 is considered bad. You're not supposed to have a D. It's still like okay, but it's like most people are going to say that you're stupid if you have D's, like a D across the board. You're just kind of dumb. And then if you have an F, like a 5 or below, that's not satisfactory. Like, you will not be able to pass school. It's not even something they'll accept. So that's how I kind of work my video game scale as well. A 10 out of 10 is a masterpiece. It is hard to achieve, almost impossible. And if you got a 10 out of 10, then you are one of the best games probably ever made. If you're a 9 out of 10, I think that you are a great game. Everybody should give you a try. It's you are one of the better games that have come out this year and probably will be regarded as like an overall great game. There's not much that you can really complain about this game at all. And even if you don't like the game, it's because of your own personal taste. It's not necessarily because the game is actually bad. An 8 out of 10, which is where we're kind of hitting as Stellar Blade, is good. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's great either. It's good. It's a game that I think has qualities that work and qualities that don't. Overall, I would still play it. I would play it on a sale. That's kind of what I say a flat 8 out of 10 is. An 8.5, I think we're still at a territory of like is great. An 8 flat, an 8.0 is a game I think is good. I'll buy it on a sale to see if I like it. It will probably have problems. It'll probably be kind of boring at times. And if I can get past those flaws, and they're probably not huge flaws to get past, but if I can get past those flaws, then I can continue on with my life and enjoy the game. And I think that's where Stellar Blade kind of falls. Stellar Blade falls in, well, I think that some of the dungeons are repetitive. The story kind of sucks. The characters kind of suck. The incentives that you get within the open world and exploration are not very well done. Like, there are issues. The pacing for that game is, I think, really off. It's a very front stacked and back stacked game. The middle of that game is boring as frick. It's really not a very fun game for like the middle stretch. But everything else about that game, I would say, is really good. And so I look at Stellar Blade 2, and I just say, I don't think this developer really knows exactly what they're doing when it comes to developing like a 9 out of 10. I think that they're going to make Stellar Blade again. I don't think they're going to learn from their mistakes, but that is something I'm guessing at. Maybe they will, but I just don't see very many people really criticizing Stellar Blade because it sold very, very, very well. But when I say, hey, it's an 8 out of 10, that sounds like an insult. But here's the thing, okay? Most 8 out of 10 games, I probably will not make an effort to get around to unless I think like that is an 8 out of 10 game. That's a game I really think looks good for me. Because the gaming landscape nowadays is so packed. It's incredibly packed, and every year we're seeing games that are all super really really well reviewed, great games. People are clearly figuring out how to make good games now. And so many good games are coming out so frequently. When are you going to have time to get around to an 8 out of 10 game when you have 15, 9 out of 10 games that are released every year? Like we are not even 6 months into the year. 6 full months have not gone by. We have several 9 out of 10 games that have come out. We have many 8.5s or above. So let me read you off games. I could play Stellar Blade, an 8 out of 10 game, or just this year, I could play Mina the Hollower, a 91 on Metacritic. By the way, 90s and aboves is crazy to get. Forza Horizon 6, 91. Schrodinger's Call, 89. Pokemon Pocapia, 89. Resident Evil, 89. Mugenics, 88. 007 First Light, 87. Saros, 87. Hermit and Pig, 87. Titanium Court, 87. DLC. Neo 3, 86. Mixtape, 86. Opus Prism Peak, 86. Monster Hunter Stories 3, 86. Cairn, 86. I could go on. You probably are not even realizing we haven't even gotten to like something like Pragmata or maybe an Esoteric Ebb that came out this year, which also have great reviews, 85s and above. Like, that is just this year. And then you have every other year that has happened up until now. Bro, those games don't just disappear and they don't just stop being good games. Like, it's hard for me to justify playing an 8 out of 10 game when I have so many other very good video games out there that I could easily put my time into, and I will probably never even have enough time to play all those games that I just listed for this year. And that's half the year. That's not even half the year. So it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, an 8 out of 10 game, I'm excited for that, is what I'm essentially saying. It's hard for me to be excited for an 8 out of 10 game. And I think that, saying an 8 out of 10 game isn't great, it's true, and I think we all kind of understand that, but at the same time, why is being good bad, I think, is a very hard thing to grasp as well. And it's not necessarily that being good is bad. It's just that being good is bad when everything else around you is great. That's the problem. And it's a horrible problem that we have in the gaming industry, but it's also the best problem you could possibly ever have in the gaming industry. So that's what I meant when I said, look, I seemed very down on Stellar Blade 2, essentially, and I said it was an 8 out of 10. And it's like, yeah, it sounds way harsher than it is when I say it's an 8 out of 10, and it's not that bad, right? So that's what I mean. I like these discussions. So I appreciate the comment, Mr. J. Massio. And now that we're 25 minutes into the episode, we can begin with the news. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the news. Everybody's favorite part of the show, or at least, one of mine. I enjoy all parts of the show, but in this case, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Direct, which was the most viewed presentation during Summer Games Fest this year, not this previous year, but this year. So I had a friend who doesn't normally watch Nintendo Directs, and he had been talking with me about this Direct because he knew that Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake was going to be revealed here. It was a known factor that this game has been leaked, it is going to come, and here we are. This Nintendo Direct is obviously where they're going to show it off. And so he was texting me back and forth like, I've never watched these things. They always bore the frick out of me. I really only care about like Zelda from Nintendo. I really couldn't care about any other franchise from then. But here I am. I have done it. I have gotten in, and I am watching the Nintendo Direct. So clearly, Just the promise of a potential reveal of Ocarina of Time remake was enough to bring in a lot of eyes, or at least anecdotally. That's what I saw. So here we are. The most viewed Nintendo Direct ever. The most viewed presentation during Summer Games Fest. Was it warranted? Was it truly the best Nintendo Direct? Well, let's go through it, shall we? And by the way, we're going to go through every single game that was shown off in this presentation, and you may start noticing a pattern eventually. So, let's begin. The opener was Rhythm Heaven Groove. I have always been a fan of the Rhythm Heaven games. I like rhythm games in general. Rhythm Heaven is an interesting game because it's a wacky rhythm game where you're playing like mini games essentially instead of actual what you're typically associating as like a Guitar Hero-esque rhythm game. This is more of like you're playing a mini game with rhythm mechanics as well. And it's always bizarre, it's always zany, it's always wacky, and it's never been like a super prominent Nintendo IP. And in all honesty, a lot of them are still very hard to get a hold of. You can't play them, but I think one's on the 3DS, and I think one is on the Wii. I think those are the two that you have access to. And I think the Wii one wasn't even localized. I think it was only Japan that got that game. So it's only recently become available to people in the US at all. And it kind of blew up. It kind of became a meme on the internet a long time ago, and they're finally making another Rhythm Heaven game. And I've actually even seen Rhythm Heaven around at arcades. There's like a Japanese Rhythm Heaven arcade game, which is the exact same thing as the game on a console. It's just an arcade version of it, which I don't know why you would play the game that way. But sure, it's another avenue, and I think it's just kind of interesting that it exists at all. It will be out July 2nd. It's going to have like an RPG style mode and a multiplayer mode, and it actually seems like a fully fleshed out Rhythm Heaven game, which I wasn't really expecting. I was expecting it to just be another Rhythm Heaven game, just a bunch of single player mini games, but in this case, it seems to actually have a full set of features. It'll be $40, and I definitely intend on playing this game. I don't know if I'll play it off the jump. I do really look forward to it, but I don't know when I'll get around to it. It's not like a game that I have to play immediately as soon as it comes out. I think it's kind of one of those timeless releases. Next, Onimusha Way of the Sword is coming to Switch 2. We may have already talked about this already on the previous episodes. This is nothing new. Not necessarily the Switch 2 port, but this game isn't anything new. So this game also, just as of yesterday, as the time of recording, it got its release date moved up. So it was September 25th, and now it's September 4th. They had to get out of that really ridiculously packed release window of Silent Hill Townfall, Control, and Onimusha. They didn't think they were going to make it, which for a Japanese developer, very big deal. Most Japanese developers do not care about it. Like once they are set in stone on their release date, they are never moving. So it was a very interesting situation to see them actually move and to move up as well. Next, Dragon's Dogma 2 Dark Arisen coming to the Switch 2. You may have realized that this game is somewhere else other than the Switch. So this is not a new thing. It is new to the Switch, but it is not new to anybody else. Next, Stellar Blade is coming to the Switch 2. This is a little bit more interesting to me. Yes, it's a port. But Stellar Blade was initially a timed exclusive for the PlayStation 5. It was a game that did very well there, moved to PC, did very well, and now is clearly expanding even further. This is a studio that, Shift Up specifically, that Sony could have probably locked down, could have gotten complete exclusivity to it, but didn't believe in Stellar Blade enough to do so. And hey, I think it was an 8 out of 10 game, but it's clearly done much better than I would have expected an 8 out of 10 game to do. So regardless, this game is coming to Sony or to a Nintendo platform, and it just kind of shows that Sony let this get away. It's a series that's doing very well, and otherwise they could have had it themselves. Next, Orbitals coming in September. We got a release date of September 3rd for Orbitals. This is the co-op anime art style game. Looks pretty solid. Looks like another Split Fiction or It Takes Two or something like that. It's kind of that series has, I guess, created a new genre of co-op games, and I really enjoyed It Takes Two. I really enjoyed Split Fiction. I think they're both fantastic games, and if Orbitals is anywhere near that, I love the art style for Orbitals. It looks great. I'm an anime nerd though, so an art style like this is very appealing to me. But if Orbitals is anything like Split Fiction or, It Takes Two, then we're looking for a very fun time here as long as you have a partner to go with you. That is the unfortunate problem with these games. If you do have to have a friend, which is not always easy when it comes to playing video games like these. So as long as you can, though, you typically have a very good time. Next, Rayman Legends Retold. Yep, this game was also shown off at another place, and it was coming everywhere. So, yep, it's coming to the Switch too. Big Walk. Big Walk from the creators of Untitled Goose Game, a cooperative multiplayer game that is also going to come to the Switch too. This is nothing new. We saw nothing new from this game other than the fact it's coming August 4th, so we got a release date from the game. So, again, nice to see a release date, but nothing completely new here either. Next, and actually something new. Your mileage may vary on the excitement here, though. It's One Piece Grand Gourmet, which is a One Piece pixel art game. I don't know or care much about it. It seems to be a cooking game. Okay, I mean, like, I enjoy One Piece, but I feel like there are better ways to utilize the IP for a video game. I don't think any One Piece game has been particularly great, and honestly, maybe even good. So this certainly doesn't look to be the game to break that streak. It will be okay at best, and you will play it if you're some One Piece diehard, and that's cool, I guess. So your first real big new announcement from this Nintendo Direct is One Piece Grand Gourmet. Again, we'll see how. Watch and see that we're gonna see. Keep going. We're gonna see more of this exact same theme. I promise. Next, Pokemon Pocapia gets a free update and paid DLC coming in the future. It's an underwater DLC. So you can now go underwater with your dive move as your weird Ditto child thing that you play as in this game. Pokemon Pocapia obviously came out of nowhere and surprised a lot of people. It's been helping the Switch 2 out tremendously. Has sold buku copies, a lot of stuff. Many copies have been sold of Pokemon Pocapia, reviewed incredibly well, an 89, as I said earlier in the episode, on Metacritic. This is from the same people who did Dragon Quest Builders 1 and 2, which are both very well reviewed and well regarded building simulators. So it's not entirely surprising to see this. But it is surprising because Dragon Quest Builders never got any DLC. So the fact that Pokemon Pocapia is an interesting little aside. But overall, if you like Pokemon Pocapia, you will have probably hundreds of more hours of content available to you through these expansions, which is great. I don't care about building sims or any kind of like something along those lines, like a Minecraft or what's another example? I guess The Sims or whatever the case is. Those aren't necessarily games that I am attracted to. I need a little bit more focus in my games because I have too many games to get to. I cannot submit myself to being immersed in this, like, my own perfection is the only thing that's really stopping me from like being done with this game. And I'm sorry, I can't get in on that. Not only would it bore me, but it would also like drive me insane. I probably would play it for like 500 hours and be like, well, I could have played 5,000 other games in this amount of time, and my brain just is dumb, and it works in an economy scale of what I can trade my time for. So I'll be steering clear of it, but I know a lot of people will really enjoy that. Next, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave gets a release date for September 17th. We all kind of knew this game was coming out this year. It had been teased a while back, and it looks like more Fire Emblem, specifically more Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is a great game. I have only played Fire Emblem Three Houses of the Fire Emblem series, but in general, I enjoyed my time with Fire Emblem Three Houses. I think I've played better tactics games per se, but I really enjoyed the like Three Houses element and how the story evolves around that, how you recruit characters to join your squad or whatever the case may be. I really enjoyed those aspects of the game, and I think that's what most people tend to kind of say when they say they really like Three Houses, is they like almost the Harry Potter-esque, tribalism of the game. But in general, we saw some gameplay footage for this game, which we had not seen prior. And by gameplay, I mean like tactics stuff. But what did we see from that tactics stuff? I mean, it looks like Fire Emblem. It really doesn't look like anything has changed significantly from Three Houses to here. I would say it's another, and really Fire Emblem in general does not change that much from any one iteration to another. So it's remained pretty stagnant throughout its entire series run. So in this case, if you wanted just another Three Houses, you're good to go. But in general, this reveal or this release date trailer did nothing to really excite me beyond what I knew of already, as this is going to be another Three Houses. I don't really see any reason to be excited outside of that still after seeing this trailer. So I'm sure at some point Nintendo will have a direct specifically for this game, but currently I'm not super enthralled with it. Or at least excited by it. Not that enthralled makes it sound like I don't care about it. I personally am just looking at it and being like, yeah, it seems fine. Next, Ninjala 2. So this actually is a reveal, but it's for Ninjala. So Ninjala 2, if you haven't heard of Ninjala, it is a free-to-play game on the Switch that actually did pretty well. It got its own like TV show. It's for children. If you haven't heard of, if you're listening to this show, and if my demographics are accurate, my demographic information is accurate, and you are between the age of 28 and 34, then you do not know about what Ninjala is, specifically Ninjala the TV show, because it was made for children. But it was an anime, it got dubbed and everything, so I guess they expected people here or kids here to enjoy it. But it's basically a third-party Splatoon. It's very similar to Splatoon in a lot of ways. The art style is even somewhat reminiscent of Splatoon, but in this case, Ninjala 2: The Uncharted Planet will be coming in 2027, and it will be moving to an open world kind of development, or philosophy, however you want to say it. The first game was more level based, very similar to Splatoon. So if you are 8 years old, you probably were super psyched to see Ninjala 2: The Uncharted Planet revealed. Next, the DK Challenge event was announced. So I actually took part in this, so I am more than happy to talk about it in depth. So DK Challenge, DK is clearly something that they are pushing as a franchise. They want DK to be a big deal. They have a DK movie currently in the works. They have a DK theme park at Universal Studios Orlando, Florida, and Japan and Los Angeles. So he is now a big deal. I think Nintendo is, and then of course Donkey Kong Bonanza was, I think, the big launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2, or at least the most interesting one. Obviously Mario Kart was probably the marquee launch title. But Donkey Kong Bonanza was what I think a lot of people considered the more interesting game of the two. And in this case, they have an entire event based around Donkey Kong where you can earn digital challenge cards. So basically Nintendo's take on trophies or achievements, which I love. I am a very much sucker is the best word for trophies and achievements. I enjoy doing them. They give me more value, more bang for my buck from the games that I play. They kind of allow me to do things that I maybe wouldn't have done normally. So I enjoy trophies and achievements. In this case, you are basically given a list of challenges, and they're across every game from the entire Donkey Kong series. So from Super Mario to, or whatever, what was the original arcade cabinet called? Like, was it just called Donkey Kong? I don't know. I don't think it was. I think it was called Super Mario or something like that. I can't remember what the actual, that is. You can take my gamer card, okay? I'm not a gamer anymore. I forgot what the original arcade cabinet with Donkey Kong and Mario's name was. But anyways, that one, and Donkey Kong Country, obviously, and all the other games that are currently on the Nintendo like subscription platforms. And you obviously have to have a subscription to those in order to do these challenges and collect the rewards. I currently do have a base subscription, so I was able to take part in that. And it was very fun because it was like, just do this level. Just complete this level and we'll give you a card. And I was like, okay, cool. And so what you do is you go into the mission, or you go into the menu for the DK challenge, and you select a card, and it will take you right into that level of that game. And then once you complete that level, it will just take you out immediately. It'll close the game out, and it'll take you out, and it will give you the card. And it did. I was able to do that for pretty much all of them. I did all of the retro challenges, and then they had a separate set of challenges for, Donkey Kong Bonanza, which most of those were really difficult. They were developer challenges, so they were meant to be really, really hard. And I didn't want to relearn the controls of Donkey Kong Bonanza because honestly, the Donkey Kong Bonanza, I don't know why that's a tongue twister right now for me. But the Donkey Kong Bonanza controls are really not intuitive. They're not what you expect from a platformer, and you really have to relearn them every time you play the game. So I went back in and grabbed a couple of the easiest ones. And a lot of them they'll just give you if you've already beaten the game, because it's like, get to this point in the game. And so I'd beaten the game, so it just automatically gave me all of those. But the controls are so difficult to remember that I was like, I'm not even going to attempt these developer challenges because they're so difficult. I don't want anything to do with them. But I like the idea of trophies, obviously. Like, I played this for a couple of hours, on a Saturday. I just kind of sat down and was like, hey, fun times in Ridgemont High. I love trophies. I'll just do these. The problem with these is I don't know how much longevity they have. So like, if I get an achievement with Xbox, if I get a PlayStation trophy, those things stay with me for as long as I have an account. And I can look at those and go back and check on those forever. I can't imagine that is what the Donkey Kong Challenge cards will be. I don't think that is what they will be, at least. I can't imagine Nintendo is really thinking in a long term, like, we're going to have these challenges for every game that we ever make or something like that. So it feels like I just did it for fun, and I didn't necessarily do it for the collection aspect, because the collection is probably going to disappear when this challenge disappears. I hope that's not the case. I hope Nintendo continues forward with some kind of trophy system. It's a cool, interesting idea. It's a little bit different. It's got that Nintendo wackiness to it. But in general, I hope that they continue with this kind of stuff. It gives people an incentive to go back to these games, or, maybe do something that they hadn't done in a while or wouldn't have done otherwise. Next, Donkey Kong Bonanza gets some paid DLC, and it's Mario themed. It really doesn't seem like anything's going on here. It's just like Mario, he gets like a Mario outfit, and like some of the things are reskinned to be like looking like a mushroom or something like that from Super Mario. So not very interesting. Next, an actual announcement. Jujutsu Kaisen Rumble Survivation. You definitely gotta kind of double take on that one. Survivation. This is from the Vampire Survivors developer, Ponicle. So I am a Jujutsu Kaisen fan. I do think it is incredibly overhyped, but it is a good show nonetheless. Fantastic action. Great action and great animation. But the series itself, in terms of story and characters, I think could easily be way better. But that's my anime snob coming out. So in any case, this is a Vampire Survivors game. It looks like a Vampire Survivors game, but it is a multiplayer Vampire Survivors game, which is an interesting idea, and they have a system that is very reminiscent to the most recent season of Jujutsu Kaisen, where if you kill a certain number of enemies, you get to make a rule for the game that all players must follow, including yourself. So, you can use it to sabotage other players or maybe help yourself, but it would also help other players. I'm not exactly sure what all the rules would be, but that is a function of the arc in the game or in the series. So, it is very reminiscent of that. I think that's a cool concept, and I think that Vampire Survivors in general is a fun game, and if they want to make it multiplayer, this is a really fun and interesting way of doing that. So, hey, I actually think that looks pretty cool. I'm not a big multiplayer guy, so I probably won't ever get around to it. But I think that's a really inspired way of going about doing a Jujutsu Kaisen game, or a Vampire Survivors game, both. So very cool. Next, Lords of the Fallen 2 is coming to Switch 2 because for some reason people keep talking about Lords of the Fallen as if the last several games didn't do mediocrely and nobody really ever seems to care about them. It continues to get play here, and it's coming to the Switch, which, yeah, we've seen this game at other showcases. Cool. Nothing really new here. Next, Lies of P is coming to the Switch. Okay, cool. Next, Devil May Cry 5 is coming to the Switch. Okay, cool. Next, Muramasa Revenant Blades is coming in 2027 to the Nintendo Switch. Muramasa is a Vanillaware game and also coming to PC, which I think is the more interesting aspect of this. No Vanillaware game has ever come to PC. Not only that, but the developer has actually come out and specifically said that they don't want to put things on the PC. They think it's a little bit more cumbersome than it's worth, which, hey, it was an inevitability. Sorry, fellas, but you're going to eventually have to put stuff on PC. It's just the way the market's moving. But in this case, Muramasa is, I thought it was a sequel. So I've actually played Muramasa Demon Blades, which came out on, I don't know what all platforms it came out on, but I played it on the Vita, the PlayStation Vita, surprisingly enough. It is fine. It is a hack and slash game. It is a little bit grindy, is what I recall. Is the story goes on for a little bit too long and makes you do a bunch of fetch quests, and it wasn't necessarily like as fun as I wanted it to be. It's a Japanese grindy game, which is fine, but it's a hack and slash game and it's beautiful. It is an absolutely beautiful game. If you haven't seen a Vanillaware game before, you would recognize their art very distinctly. It's a very beautiful series, but this is just Muramasa, the game that came out a long time ago, and its expansion, which I never played. I never played that, but because I think Muramasa and the Demon Blade was a PlayStation Plus free game, and so I just had it as part of my PlayStation Plus subscription. But in this case, it's cool that people who didn't play Muramasa can play it now, and I don't know, people necessarily weren't screaming for it, I don't think, but hey, it's cool it's getting another shake. Next, the main Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy is getting Switch 2 editions. Each one of these editions is going to be adding minimal content to the games, really. The biggest part I think most people would be interested in is 4K 60 frames per second graphics, which is not necessarily ground up renovation. It seems to be AI upscaling, which I guess is better than nothing. So I actually own all of the Xenoblade games, but I've just never had the time to actually get around to them because they're all freaking 60-hour JRPGs. So I was like, this is my chance. I can finally play Xenoblade. And so I actually popped in Xenoblade and I looked at the before and after. Essentially, I started the game prior to upgrading it, just kind of looked around in the menus and stuff, and then I upgraded it, spent the $10, upgraded it, and then popped in the game. And essentially, it really does look a lot better. Like it goes from being kind of pixely and stuff to being much smoother and much clearer. And I'm not going to say it's like a you have to have this. It's not that much of an improvement, at least for me. I'm not necessarily that big of a snob about those kind of things, so I don't care as long as the game is still fun and not like butt ugly. but like I know that definition of butt ugly changes from person to person. So in this case, it wasn't like ugly to me, but it is a noticeable improvement. You also get like voiced character sequences, which previously were not voiced, and in Xenoblade 1, you get you get like a speed racer, or you basically get a water boat or like a sea-doo that you can ride around on water instead of just swimming. So a quality of life improvement, pretty much. Um, cool. For $10. For some reason, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is coming, the upgrade is coming July 30th, and 3 is coming December 3rd. So for some reason, they didn't just drop all of these. They're all $10 a piece. They, for some reason, felt like they needed to space them out, even though they're all clearly done, and you can buy them all currently if you really wanted to. But I guess it's to give people an incentive to go to each game individually and play it, and then go to the next one. But I don't know. It's why is this like a $10 upgrade? I don't know. It's Nintendo being Nintendo, but in general, like if you really wanted to experience the game in the best possible way you could, that's cool. This is going to be your way to do it. They're also going to come out with physical editions of the game, or new versions of the game that you can just buy a la carte. So if you don't have, like me, I have the base version of Xenoblade Chronicles for the Switch. You can just buy the Switch 2 version up front, if you have a Switch 2. So that's cool. What is actually cool is we're getting a brand new Xenoblade game, Xenoblade Genesis, which is one of the few new announcements from the Nintendo Direct, which is great. Genesis seems to be another Xenoblade game. It would have been cool to see the developer spread its wings and maybe do something a little bit different. We've had 3 Xenoblade games back to back to back. Actually, more than that if you include Xenoblade Chronicles X. So 4 Xenoblade games, and so now this would be their 5th Xenoblade game, and it just feels like we just wrapped up that trilogy. Everybody seems to be pretty satisfied with it. It's cool that like there's a new entry point for people if you really wanted to get into the Xenoblade series, but in general, I wish we could be getting something a little bit different. Maybe something a little bit more unique and interesting. I feel like these developers have to have something kicking around in their heads. They're a very well-known and storied developer of the Xeno series, Saga and Xenoblade. So maybe something without a Xeno in front of it that just is their own and cool and interesting and fun. And not saying any of the other Xenoblade games weren't, but I just like variety, right? Who doesn't like good variety? But we didn't learn too much about it. It seems to still be mostly a mystery. We will continue to learn about it in 2027, I'm sure, when it is slated to be released. So while you're playing Xenoblade 1, 2, and 3 updated on the Switch 2, you can now wait for a 4th massive JRPG to add to your backlog. Next, Nintendo Switch Sports Resort is coming to the Switch 2. This looked interesting. So they put out a Switch sports game recently, not recently, but a few years ago on the original Switch. So now this is their resort. So on the Wii, we all remember Wii Sports, which was the launch title for the Wii, that came boxed in with every single Wii and made it really a massive success. Like I think that's a huge contributing factor to it. That's the reason that all the retirement homes were playing Wii Bowling and still are, is because it came packaged with the Wii. Next, they came out with Wii Sports Resort. So that was the sequel to Wii Sports. Nobody cared about it anywhere near as much as Wii Sports, or the proper iteration. And then now we have Wii Sports on the Switch, which was a little bit more multiplayer focused, a little bit more online focused. And now we have Wii Sports, or Nintendo Sports Resort. So this seems to be a lot of those mini games from the original Wii Sports Resort, from the Wii. And what they decided to show off during the Direct was a demonstration of the thumb wrestling game, which, for the love of God, like, oh man, that was painful. Not only did it not look fun, but he ended up losing the game, and he was like, you could tell that it was like a one take thing. He was like, oh yeah, I'll play the game. Yeah, like we'll show off the game. I'll demo it. And then he played it and he lost, and he was like, that's enough. We don't need to keep going. Like, I'm good. And like that is I don't know. It seemed pretty ballsy to put that in the direct. Like, yeah, that's our big gain for this series is Wii Sports thumb wrestling. Like, you'll really get a kick out of that. Not enough for like the head of Nintendo to want to continue playing it or to even be good at it. But yeah, it's there. Like, what the frick? That is just such an odd way to show this game off. The last Nintendo Sports game did not do very well critically, and I guess it did enough sales wise to justify making Resort. But I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to be too excited about this. So that's going to be coming October 22nd. So mark your calendars. You can thumb wrestle your friends to your heart content. Next, RuneScape Dragon Wilds is coming to Switch 2. This is also something that we've seen at another direct, or another presentation earlier in the week. So not anything special here. Cool. Next, an announcement. Hello Kitty Partyland was announced and coming October 29th. If you're looking for a Hello Kitty Mario Party clone, boy howdy, do I have some good news for you. It's Hello Kitty Partyland. Okay, yeah, I don't think this set anybody ablaze, but hey, Hello Kitty's a huge IP. I'm sure the games sell very well. I think Hello Kitty Island Adventure was actually considered to be pretty successful, and that was like their mobile game that I think also came to the Switch. So, hey, Hello Kitty's out there. It's a domineering force. Next, a demo for Star Fox is out today. So nothing particularly new from the game. It will be releasing June 25th, so in less than a week by the time you're hearing this. And yep, it's out. So that's what we got there. Next, an announcement. And this one, actually, I think a lot of people were excited about. However, let me bring down the temperature of the room a little bit. Final Fantasy Resonance was announced. Square Enix's next HD 2D game, which to me, when I first saw this announcement, I thought this was Final Fantasy 1 being remade in an HD 2D style. That's what I thought it was. And I was like, this is great. I was like, what? This they should have been doing this years ago. Why didn't we start bringing these old franchises and revitalizing them and spraying life back into their corpses with this HD 2D art style? That seems like what it was designed for. And then all of a sudden, Cloud comes out as a summon. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I know for a fact that Cloud is not a summon in Final Fantasy 1 because obviously Final Fantasy 7 didn't exist before Final Fantasy 1. If you can count to 7, you would know that. So obviously that seemed a little off to me. What the frick is this? And I was like, I can't believe they're like putting all this fan service in Final Fantasy 1. I guess that makes sense. Maybe. But like, maybe it's our celebration of the entire series up to this point. Cool, I guess. Started doing research on this game. Oh, this is a port of a mobile game. Oh, I see. It was a gacha mobile game where you could roll for summons. And they remade it. So this is very much an Octopath Traveler 0 situation. Octopath Traveler 0 was a gacha game, a mobile game, and they made it into a console game, took out all the mobile elements of it, all the microtransactions and gacha elements, and kind of transformed it into a more typical console pay for upfront experience. This is what they're doing with Final Fantasy Resonance. They're doing that with a Final Fantasy mobile game. So far less interesting when you put it in that context. So I went from being like, oh yeah, dude, I'll totally be playing this. That looks awesome. To being like, yeah, I'll probably be passing on this. Like, it looks okay, I guess. We'll see what reviews say. I can't imagine this is going to be a stellar reviewed game. It's probably going to be like an 84 tops on Metacritic, if I had to guess. The Octopath Traveler 0 remake was an 82. So that's kind of your baseline for what you're expecting here, I think. It will be out October 22nd. Next, a sequel to Piku Niku, which is a Devolver Digital game. It is a 3D game now. So Piku Niku was kind of just a wacky 2D side-scrolling platformer where you're just kind of running around a weird environment. If you saw Piku Niku, you'd probably recognize it. Like the main character is literally just like a pill with legs. It's like a red pill with legs. That's pretty much it. And in Piku Niku 2, you're basically just running around now in a 3D environment, and you're still in a wacky world that makes no sense and probably interacting with things in a comical and interesting manner. It almost gives off like Katamari Damacy vibes, in at least in tone and wackiness. I played Piku Niku 2 for free on Game Pass, I think, at one point, and I played it, and I was like, yeah, okay, I kind of got it, and I bailed after like 30 minutes. It didn't really hook me, but I've heard some people enjoy Pikuniku. Clearly warranted a sequel, at least by Devolver Digital standards, and it's a significant upgrade. So from 2D to 3D. So hey, worth at least keeping an eye on. Next, an announcement for Dragon Quest Monsters: The Withered World. This is essentially a monster trainer for Dragon Quest. This is nothing new in terms of these kinds of games have been made for a very long time. I've never gotten into them, and I don't intend on getting into this one. I'm certainly not like a Dragon Quest fanboy. I really haven't played very much Dragon Quest at all in general. So I'm not very drawn to the series, and I certainly don't care about like monster training sims either. So December 3rd, for those of you that may be interested in either, you have that at your disposal. Next, the Duskbloods. Oh wait, we didn't get anything new here. In fact, literally, it's just a recut trailer from the original trailer. There's nothing new here. In fact, there's less that we've seen in the past here. And specifically, it's getting a closed network test. No release date. Coming this summer. This is I don't know. It kind of makes me go like, I don't know what's going on with this game. We haven't heard much about it. We don't seem to know much about it. I don't trust FromSoft with multiplayer games too much because Night Rain was not reviewed super well. It was an 81 on Metacritic, but like overall, not super well regarded. So again, it was okay, but like From Software is known as one of the best video game developers in the world. So the fact that a best video game developer in the world made an 81 is kind of weird, right? So Dustbloods kind of seems like it could be down the same path. Who knows? We'll have to take a look at the closed network test, and maybe it will still make this year. Perhaps. I think that is a long shot, but we'll see. We'll see. It's just such a packed year. I don't know when you're going to find the time at this point, especially for a multiplayer game that needs to maintain a community. That's a rough sell. Next, Splatoon Raiders is getting its own direct. It will be released on July 23rd. We learned pretty much nothing about this. It's just, hey, did you know Splatoon Raiders is coming out? It's a single-player Splatoon game, which is not normal for the Splatoon series. We'll see how it translates to that. I was hoping to see a much bigger departure for Splatoon. I feel like Splatoon is always a series that I look at and I'm like, yeah, that could really be something. That could really be something. And then it never ends up being something, at least in single player like scenarios, because it's I feel like it's kind of held back by the fact it's mostly a multiplayer game. So I was hoping that they'd be able to really take some real creative liberties with this and maybe even change up movement style, platforming, something along those lines. But it really does seem like just more single player content from Splatoon. There's obviously changes, but it feels like just more of what we're used to. So more Splatoon Raiders. They also are going to get a new Joy-Con color for this game. Cool. Next, Deltarune Chapter 5 coming out this month. Everybody loves good Deltarune, right? I still have not played chapters 3 or 4. I've only played chapters 1 and 2 because they were free. I purchased chapters 3 and 4 and just haven't gotten around to them. This is obviously from the creator of Undertale, and Deltarune I don't think is as popular as Undertale, but I think a lot of that is undermined by the fact that this is a 7-chapter game that he is putting out like, I would have rather just this game be put out at one time. I think the chapter release schedule for this game is really hurting it. Who really wants to get into this game right now? Like, you're not going to have a huge community backing it, as at least as big of a community backing it, because people are going to look at it and be like, when am I going to see the ending of this? Like 20 years from now? At this rate? Yeah, no thanks. No thank you, sir. And they're going to just wait for the whole thing to come out. So at this point, though, you can get the game, and you will have all chapters guaranteed to you for the low price of free if you buy the game now. So we'll see. I look forward to continue playing it at some point, and maybe I'll actually get around to it now that we have an incentive of Chapter 5. But can't wait for another 2 years where we get Chapter 6 and maybe Chapter 7. Next, Metaphor ReFantazio is coming to the Switch too. This is a game that I played last year, and I thought it was one of the best JRPGs I've ever played. I am also a sucker for the Persona team, so this is from the Persona team, and you'd know that if you've played any of it at all. And it is a great RPG. Was reviewed fantastically, and the Switch handheld is a great place to play it because it's a very long game. And not only is it a very long game, but it's broken up into little bits. So like you can go in and do a dungeon raid one day, or you can go talk to your companions one day, and that's something that I think lends itself to a handheld format very well. Of like, well, I'm just on the bus right now. I'll just pull out my Switch 2 and play one day of Metaphor ReFantazio and call it. And like, I think that's great. So I think that series in general is a very good handheld game. Next, Minecraft is coming to Switch. Yep. Okay, cool. Next, Partner Showcase highlighted 11 games that are coming to the Switch. Say it with me. Atelier. Caria? Probably Caria. I don't think that's a new announcement, and I guarantee you it's coming to other platforms. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. Okay. Observer, System Redux, DayZ, Metal Gear Solid Collection V2, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Tales of Eternia Remastered, SnowRunner, Fitness Boxing 3, Everbloom, and Final Fantasy 14 Online. How many of these games are exclusive to the Wii or to the Switch? Probably just Fitness Boxing 3. The rest are old games, or games that are coming out on other platforms simultaneously. So, like, Warhammer has been out for a few years now. I know DayZ has been out for many years. Final Fantasy 14 Online. It's just, what this shows to me is Nintendo has no issue. It's like the Switch 2 and the Switch are quite possibly the best business decision I've ever seen in my entire life. We can just charge mother effers for the same game that they already own at full price in perpetuity. They'll play it on one platform. They'll play it on PC or PlayStation or something, and then we'll release it 2 years later because our hardware can't handle it, or we'll release it on the whole nother generation years later because our hardware can't handle it, and then we'll just charge full price for it. What the frick? That's the craziest nonsense I've ever heard, but it clearly frickin' works. People are just paying for the portability aspect of it. That's all it is. And I don't even think people eventually get around to playing half of these games again on their Switch. It's literally just like, I have the promise of being able to play this game handheld now. And I mean, that's just not going to work out for Nintendo forever because Sony has already been heavily rumored to be having a handheld version of their PlayStation 6. So a PlayStation Portable, which if I can have it on my console and day one and my handheld day one, why would I buy on Nintendo? Like, that just doesn't seem like a smart idea. And then PC handhelds are starting to become, they're still very niche and don't sell a lot, but they are now like a portion of the market. And it's like, why would I buy a game on my Switch when I can have it on a very high-powered PC gaming handheld? Like, I feel like Nintendo's niche of being this handheld gaming platform, that's coming to an end. Very slowly but surely. People are seeing, Nintendo making a lot of money just doing nothing but re-releasing 5-year-old games on their system. Like, maybe we should stop that. Like, I think it's kind of insane how it just seems like the Switch's entire catalog is bolstered by just all these old releases that people are somehow still excited to see coming to this. Next, this was probably the biggest showing for me at Nintendo, but gosh darn was I underwhelmed by it. Excuse me. Kingdom Hearts 4 was shown yet again at the Nintendo Direct. That's right. That game that just kind of disappeared for a while, and we didn't know where the heck it was, but it was in development. It's around. That's right. So they showed off Kingdom Hearts 4 again. And what did we really learn? Really jack all. It looks like combat is still the combat that we saw when it was revealed, and very similar to Kingdom Hearts combat. We saw characters, some of which are familiar, most of which look like random freaking characters that I have no idea have anything to do with the game. And knowing Kingdom Hearts, I probably will be confused when I find out why they're significant in any way. This just felt like a very underwhelming reveal. I think the biggest and most interesting thing in this entire reveal is it's coming to Switch 2 day one, which this has been such a hardcore Sony franchise since day one, like Kingdom Hearts 1 way back in the day, that the fact that Square Enix has taken a hard stance on, we refuse to put anything on an exclusive platform anymore. We learned our lesson. People don't buy as many copies when it's not as available on other platforms, which is, hey, that seems to be how math works most of the time, right? But in this case, yeah, it's going to be coming everywhere all at once, which is great for everybody, right? I'd rather more people be able to play it, sure. But in general, I mean, I didn't get a release date. I didn't get like significant gameplay showing me anything more than what I've already seen. I really feel like in order to be really excited for Kingdom Hearts, you need to see Disney Worlds. Where am I going? Like, where's Luke Skywalker? That's the only thing that's going to actually make me super hype. Like, right now, I really have no idea what this game is about. I have no idea if the combat's been improved. I have no idea what's going on. It's just Kingdom Hearts is still around, and it's still in development. And it's like, that's cool, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like a very interesting reveal other than the fact that it's still alive. Like, I think it was 4 years ago that they initially revealed this game. So I don't know. As a Kingdom Hearts longtime fan and somebody who has a very deep nostalgic connection to Kingdom Hearts, this did nothing for me. And I think if you do say this is a really big deal, it's because Nintendo's the people showing it, which is interesting, and it's because it's just alive still, and you're that much of a fan that you just genuinely only care about it just being alive, which, hey, good for you, I guess. Next, Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 Remix, along with 2.5 Final Chapter and 3 and Remind DLC, all coming to the Switch as disc copies and hard copies. So currently on the Switch, the original Switch, you can only play the cloud versions of the game. So if you're unfamiliar with cloud versions, it means you don't even own a digital copy. You are porting into Square Enix's servers, and you are playing a copy of the game on their machines, and they are just streaming the game to your console. So you're basically watching a video of somebody else's computer that you're remoting into, if that makes sense. In this case, they will be removing those copies, and that is even if you bought them. So if you bought a cloud version of a Kingdom Hearts game on the Switch, you will no longer have access to it. I think June 2027 is what they announced. You can still play it. They are removing it from purchase in the next couple of weeks, and then you'll have about a year to be able to play it at all. And after that, you will have no access to the game at all. That purchase you made, gone. Ephemeral. Doesn't matter. You will get a 50% discount on the new versions of the game, which are the exact same version that you bought when you bought a cloud copy. What the frick? That's insanity. That just shows, like, never buy a cloud copy of anything. Not only that, but, like, it shows how horrific digital ownership in general is. And I feel like we are moving towards a more digital, or not even digital, but probably a more cloud-based system of ownership. I think game rentals, like something like a Game Pass, will basically be trying to push, you know, hey, just download this app on your smart TV and you can play games just streaming them. And at that point, you're never going to own a game. And maybe that's okay. It's like you probably don't own most of your movies. But to me, this is a little egregious. I think everybody who owned a copy of the cloud copy should just automatically be upgraded to a actual copy of the freaking game that is on the digital storefronts now. So I think that's wacky that Square Enix thinks they can get away with that. And, hey, but nobody's going to complain about it. We're just going to kind of let it slide. So, whatever. It's Kingdom Hearts. Hey, Mickey Mouse is in it. So that's all I needed. Next, and finally, the final reveal of the Nintendo Direct. Nintendo showed off Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Remake. Yo, big deal. Big deal. Everybody loves Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, right? One of the greatest games ever made, right? People's nostalgic childhoods are wrapped up in this game, right? Well, it will be coming out in 2026, and we learned basically nothing about it. It's what is the gameplay like? Is it a full-up remake? Is there new content? Who knows? This is all speculative at this point. It doesn't really matter because all we were shown was like basically a singular frame of Link, and the art style looks okay. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it looks like the most beautiful game ever. I understand what they were trying to go for. Like, it looks like they tried to take an artistic representation of N64 graphics. So it kind of looks a little cartoony. It kind of looks a little blocky still. Not like super blocky or anything. Certainly not N64 level blocky. But like it does look a little bit, like artistic representation of an N64 game, a modern artistic representation, right? So I'm not going to sit here and tell you the game looks beautiful. I'd say the most interesting thing to me is it seems like this game will have voice acting. That's a big deal. I think Nintendo games, specifically Zelda, has needed significant voice acting presence for a long time. Obviously, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom had voice acting, but only for very limited cutscenes within the game. In this case, I hope it's way more expanded. I hope everything's fully voiced, to be quite frank. And if that's the case, I'll be pretty satisfied with that. I feel like Nintendo has to be moving in that direction with the Zelda series. But in general, this was a pretty lukewarm reveal for a game that we already knew was there because it was leaked. It's like corroborated by many different journalists. Oh yeah, this exists. Like, I'm surprised that we didn't get more information about this game. I don't think this is anything to worry about by any means, but I honestly don't think it's anything to be excited about either. I think the leak really took away a lot of the wind from this reveal. I think I'd be sitting here being like, that's really cool that they revealed the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake at this direct. That's really cool that they're making it. That's great. If I had never seen a leak. Because this leak was so obviously accurate, I don't know if I was really that excited by it. Like I said, I had my friend at the beginning. I kind of foreshadowed that he was watching specifically only for this reveal. And even he, a guy who his favorite game of all time is Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. He can't wait for, like any announcement for this. He was like, bro, what a waste of my freaking time. Like, when he told me that, I was like, oh, dang. That is not a good way for people to be responding to your video game. Absolutely not. So he was like, bro, F this game, or F this Nintendo Direct. Like, I don't care about indie games. I don't care about ports. Like, I just care about Ocarina of Time. And they basically showed me freaking nothing. Like, I don't even have a release date. Still 2026? Brother, how much ambiguity do you need around the release date? We have 6 months left. Why do you need to tease me on a release date? Come on. Why do I not get to see anything other than just a teaser trailer? It feels like this should have been a much bigger bang of a reveal, and it just simply wasn't. So, going back through this Direct, the most watched Nintendo Direct of all time, the most watched Nintendo Direct at this Summer Games Showcase. What do I believe about it? I think it was a meh showing. I think it's okay. I think, hey, it's great to see Kingdom Hearts. I didn't see anything that blew me away. Hey, it's great to see Ocarina of Time. I didn't see anything that blew me away. Hey, it's great to see all these other games. Nothing new was shown. Very little new content was shown, very few announcements. Most of this showcase was, hey, this game that came out a year ago, 2 years ago, several years ago, it's coming to the Switch. It's not going to run like garbage anymore from your Switch 1 version. We're going to have a Switch 2 version of it. Okay, cool. Thanks. Glad I get to rebuy a game that I played years ago to have it just run better portably. That's literally the only reason you would do that. Like that to me is a normal thing with Nintendo Directs, but because Kingdom Hearts was here, because Ocarina of Time was here, I feel like I see a lot of people going both ways on like, oh no, this Direct was amazing. It's one of the best Directs ever. And a lot of people being like, yo, this Direct sucked. And it didn't really have anything worth noting and worth really getting excited about. And I think that if you are getting excited about the things that were shown at this Direct, great. You are getting excited for an idea. You have no proof that any of these games are going to be fantastic. That's the problem. And I don't like getting excited for an idea because I've been excited for many ideas over the course of my video game career. I have been excited for many cinematic trailers that I am like, oh yeah, that looks like a great game. And then I find out, oh, Watch Dogs isn't really like this, is it? It's really not as good as the cinematic trailer made me think it would be, because it just kind of is an idea of what the game is supposed to be, not exactly how the game plays. And I am way more skeptical than I used to be as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young gamer who would just be excited about any game that could possibly be coming, and the possibilities of the medium and what people were doing with the games they were developing. I am far more cynical. And when I look at a game and it does not show me gameplay, I'm not going to say that game is bad, but I'm going to say, look, I don't know. I can't tell you it's good. I can tell you the idea seems nice, but I can't tell you the idea is going to be executed well. I don't know. And I don't know. Like, I think Kingdom Hearts 3 is probably worse than Kingdom Hearts 2. But, like, does that mean Kingdom Hearts 4 is going to be worse than Kingdom Hearts 2? Or worse than 3? Or better than 3? Like, I don't know. I don't have enough to go off of. Because I thought Kingdom Hearts 3 looked pretty good in trailers. And then, I played it and I was like, oh, yeah, there's some significant issues with this game. It could have been better. There's some problems that I wish that weren't there. And that's kind of where I'm sitting with this Direct. It's like, yeah, there was some great stuff shown, but I didn't really feel like I got any concrete idea of what exactly it was, So I don't know. I'm not particularly enthralled with this Direct. I think if you are, again, you're really looking through an optimistic lens on like everything here will be good, and that's great. And I'm glad that you look at the world in that way, and I wish I had that kind of excitement. I've just simply been burned too many times. So at this point, I look at this Direct and I say, this was mostly ports, and it was the announcements for new games that I saw were not that great. So they didn't show me enough. So I feel like I give this Direct like a C. Like I'd probably say a C plus, maybe something like that. So that is the Nintendo Direct. All right, that took me way longer to get through than I thought it was going to. We're an hour and a half in, and I haven't even gotten to the biggest story. So, and I only admittedly had 2 stories. So this story is the biggin. The biggin is Xbox is shutting down or restructuring their entire org with several studios on the chopping block. They're currently in active negotiations at the time of this recording to potentially sell themselves or buy themselves out or find a potential buyer for them, they're basically dead to Microsoft at this point. They already know the end is here. So let's rewind a little bit. Okay, so that is our ultimate end goal of this particular story: is several studios are going to be shut down. So we've spoken a lot about Microsoft in the past few weeks, months, even years, on how they have been flailing, have been making a bunch of questionable decisions, to say the least. And here we are, the inevitable response, I think, to some of the decisions that were made. So we're going to start off with, as of last week, a letter, specifically Bloomberg reports that Xbox will be going through significant layoffs and restructuring. Asha Sharma, the head of the Xbox, president of Xbox at Microsoft, has a letter that she shares to the company, which they then post for public viewing because they know it's going to leak. So they just go ahead and throw it out there. And she says, quote, excluding Activision Blizzard King, over the past 5 years, we've spent over $20 billion on ongoing investments in our content, platform, and hardware subsidy, but our annual revenue has declined nearly $500 million during that time. Going forward, this cannot continue. That is already an incredibly ominous statement that if I was employed at Microsoft in a gaming studio, I would be shaking. That would send a chill down my spine, because the instant I hear that, I hear, oh, they think our games are effed up. Like, they don't think our games are producing the return that they want, and they're going to get rid of some of us. She then goes on to say, quote, we expanded our studio system when we needed a pipeline content to meet multiple strategies across subscription, streaming, and devices. In the process, we have found ourselves overextended as we executed on changing strategies in a landscape of more readily available content. Uh-oh. If you already didn't think your job was on the line as a developer at Microsoft, guess what that sentence means? That statement specifically means, oh, we're going to have to cut heads. We have too many studios. We bought a lot of studios thinking we were going to need them, and we don't think we need them anymore. That's what it comes down to. Uh-oh, that's not good. So everybody's looking out, and they're like, oh, frick. Clearly, Microsoft is going to let heads roll. Only a couple of days later, Xbox studio boss and X-Rare studio head Craig Duncan resigns, leaves after 18 months in his position as a studio boss. Uh-oh. Guess what that means? It means he doesn't want his name on the stain of all the layoffs that are about to happen. Typically, when you see an executive that high up in that portion of a company leave, you get one thing. It is them saying, I don't want this on my resume. I don't want to be here when this happens, because people are going to say I was responsible for it. And when it's layoffs and you're like, F that, I don't want that on my resume, that means they are going to really freaking cut people. They're going to cut a lot of mother effing people, because you don't just leave when they're like, oh, we're going to cut 100 people. When they're like, we're going to shut down multiple studios, that's when you probably start looking around and you're like, I don't know, like I don't want this on my resume. So he bails. Satya Nadella does an interview and he says YouTube is monetizing their content better than Microsoft does. Oof. He's very frustrated with the amount of money that Xbox is pulling in. And I don't have any choice quotes from him like I did with Asha, because he basically just kind of generally states, hey, Microsoft has been putting in a lot of money into Xbox, and it has not seen the returns that we want from it. And he specifically is like, you cannot blame us for saying we have not put money into this freaking part of the organization, because we have. And the fact that it has not turned a profit, there is a freaking problem, and I'm getting a little sick of it. I have been very, very patient and very, very generous with Xbox, and they have not done what I want them to do, which is make me money. Why haven't they made me money? So you may be wondering, like, what the frick is he talking about? YouTube monetizes their content better than they do? He's specifically talking about Minecraft. So essentially, YouTube is probably, and most certainly likely, is making more money off of Minecraft YouTube videos than Microsoft is making off of Minecraft, which is pretty effed up. Like, when you think about it, yeah, that is a weird situation to be in, that Minecraft is probably making YouTube more money than the people who own it. Like, that is a weird situation. So, Satya's not happy. That's essentially the problem here, is Satya is calling for a restructuring. And Asha's going to give it to him. So, as of just a couple of days ago, a few days ago at the time of you're listening to, we hear Xbox Studios will be shutting down Compulsion, Double Fine, and Ninja Theory. So, I should clarify. They are not being shut down. They are in active talks with Microsoft right now on what their future is. But the talks are not about if they get to live. Like, they are dead. It is a matter of, hey, can you buy yourself back? Hey, we will sell. We want you. We don't want you anymore. And we are either going to shut you down, or we can find a buyer. And that could be you, that could be Tencent, that could be Saudi Arabia, whoever wants you. But it's not us. We don't want you anymore. So that's what's going on. Xbox Studios is now in talks to get rid of Compulsion Games, Double Fine, and Ninja Theory, which is obviously a massive culling. These are the studios that themselves, I think, do a lot of the creative housework for them. Obviously, Double Fine, known for Psychonauts. They recently made Kiln and Keeper, which we'll get into in a minute. Ninja Theory, obviously, Senua's Sacrifice, or Hellblade, the Hellblade series. Compulsion Games recently made South of Midnight, which was I believe, a Peabody Award-winning game, something like that. But all of which are considered to be very artsy, interesting, creative projects, right? So they can still buy themselves back, but it's going to cost them a lot of money. Probably more money than these studios have in their banking account, because they don't need a bank account, because Microsoft gets all of their money because they own them. So as a result, they will probably go into significant debt, and they will probably have to lay off a lot of people at these studios. So it's really in no way ever is going to come out in a very good situation. I can't imagine most publishers wanting to buy Compulsion Games, Double Fine, or Ninja Theory, because these are all studios that probably don't make a lot of money. And that is probably something that most studios won't want to buy, or publishers won't want to buy. So I can only imagine the only people who could possibly want these are like Saudi Arabia, Tencent, something like that, which I'm not particularly happy about that happening either. So there is no good execution on this. There is no end game that is good. This also comes 1 week after Senua was announced by Ninja Theory at their Xbox Direct. Wow. You announce a game, and then less than a week later, your employer wants to shut you down. That's a fun week, isn't it? What? Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. Well, in this case, this specifically Xbox said, well, like, why would you? Let's be real. Why would you announce a game just to shut the studio down? It sounds like you probably should just not announce the game? Does that not seem kind of cruel? I mean, it kind of does, right? Well, Xbox came out and they said, well, the reason we did that was to show it off to potential buyers. Potentially, a new investor could come in and buy the studio because now they think, oh, Senua looks pretty good. Well, we don't want it, but you could have it. And that's kind of still effed up. It's so I guess let's rewind just a second. I think it is different than what I'm used to seeing with studio closures. So, in a lot of situations, you would say, why are these people being shut down? And that has happened a lot recently. Like Bluepoint recently was shut down by PlayStation. They weren't given the opportunity to buy themselves back. They weren't sold to another studio or publisher. They were shut down. Same thing with like Tango Gameworks. They were shut down. Now, admittedly, another publisher came along and bought them and gave them all homes again, but that was months later. And that was not an initial thing, and they did have to shut down for a period of time. In this case, why do companies do that? You know? And the most normal answer I get from most industry analysts is they don't want other people to have it. So just because they don't want it doesn't necessarily mean it couldn't be valuable to somebody else, and therefore they don't necessarily want a competitor to pick up Double Fine, and then Double Fine makes the biggest game of all time, and then Xbox is sitting here like, well, frick, we could have had that, and now our competitor has that. It's really better to just freaking kill it, and now we don't have to worry about that anymore. So from a business perspective, most of the time, shutting down a studio, especially for a company as big as Microsoft, it makes the most sense. So yeah, you could get a lot of money back on your purchase by selling it to someone else, but in the end, the opportunity costs of doing that is typically not worth it, and helping your competitors out is probably not worth it either. So just freaking snuff the thing out. That's essentially the answer I get most of the time. So Microsoft even being very open about, yeah, dude, we would really like to sell you to somebody else. Or we would really like to allow you to work independently if you can buy yourself out. I think that's honestly an olive branch that I don't normally see from major studios that shut people, or major publishers that shut studios down. So in that way, I'm very surprised that these studios have any opportunity to live on. So Microsoft should be getting at least half a point there. So the fact that they're like, oh yeah, well, we put out Senua to show it off to potential buyers. Yeah, that's still kind of effed up in a lot of ways, but it also, at least they're not just immediately shutting them down. They do want to sell the studio off to somebody. Like, that is ultimately their goal. So that's cool. It was very funny. I was watching an interview with Matthew Ball, who's now like head strategy or something of Xbox. He was a recent hire by Asha. He used to be an industry analyst, and he came out and he was doing an interview, and he'd only been employed by them for like 4 days or something like that. And he was doing an interview, and the interviewee asked, "Hey, well, why are you guys like still putting Senua on multiple platforms, but you're not putting like Gears and Clockwork on it? Like, those seemed like you could easily make Senua. Like, you hadn't even announced Senua yet, so you could easily make that a console exclusive." And he said, "No comment," and kind of like smirked a little bit and was like, "I know something you don't know." And yeah, we didn't think the thing we didn't know was like the studio was getting shut down in like 5 days. Like, that was not what I assumed the no comment meant. But it's just very funny to see how the messaging around this whole thing has been, which is not very good. These are not the only studios that are in potential talks to be shut down. Specifically, Arcane has been thrown out as a name that industry insiders are like, oh yeah, Arcane, they may be next. Arcane, the makers of Dishonored 1 and 2, and what was it? Deathloop, and also their most recent game, Redfall, which may be the reason they're on the chopping block. Not only that, but Dishonored has never been like a massive seller. The first game sold well, but the second game did not. It was a massive drop off between 1 and 2 for some reason. I think honestly, a lot of people saw Dishonored as it was advertised very well, and then when people got into it and saw it was like a like a sim game, they were like, "Oh frick, like this is not the kind of game for me." And I think it scared off any people who bought it the first time. They didn't want to play it in the sequel. I think Dishonored 2 is way better than Dishonored 1, but still. Um, Deathloop, I think, probably sold well, but not like great. And then you have Redfall, which is just such a big stain on that studio that I don't think they're gonna come out of it. I think it's easily one of the people that I would look at as a Microsoft bean counter, and I would start looking at that and say, oh, yeah, Redfall? Yeah, maybe we should shut them down. We've shut down bigger and better studios before. So speaking of that, all of these studio closures, like you can be mad all you want. You can say, oh, I love Double Fine. I love Ninja Theory. You probably don't love Compulsion Games because they've never really made a great game. But you can say you love all those other studios and you love all their games or whatever. But I actually think that a lot of this makes sense financially. So let's go through it, shall we? These studios were all acquired in 2018 when Phil Spencer went on a spree, a financial spending spree, bought up a bunch of studios. Double Fine, ever since being bought by Microsoft, has put out 3 games. Technically, the first one is Psychonauts 2, which I will not include as one of the games because that game was basically done when Microsoft bought them. They had gone through many rounds of Kickstarters and everything. Microsoft put nothing into that game, and they got Psychonauts 2, which is a great game. But it had pretty much been finished by the time they were acquired. So the 2 games that Double Fine has put out within the past 6 months, mind you, of the past 6 years, is Keeper, which is an 80 on Metacritic, and Kiln, the multiplayer pottery game, which is a 66 on Metacritic. Both of these games debuted with less than 200 players on Steam. Both of them. So nobody bought it. And you could be like, oh, well, Game Pass obfuscates the number. We really don't know. Probably most people played it on Xbox Game Pass. I'm sorry, brother, but 200 copies on Steam. If you're saying every mother effer who on Game Pass, if they own Game Pass, played Kiln and Keeper, maybe you got a point. But I don't think they did. I think those games were sent out to die. There was no marketing behind them. They were artsy-fartsy games, and I think that they were niche. Even the people who made Keeper were like, we literally went in there to a meeting with Microsoft, and we went into the meeting and we just threw out the craziest thing we could because we just wanted to see where the bar was. What is Microsoft going to be cool with? So we threw out the craziest idea we had that we didn't even think would be a good game. And they said, yeah, green light, you got it, whatever you want to do. And we made Keeper. And it's mid as frick, and nobody wanted to play it, and nobody did. And it's like, oh, frick. What the frick, dude? Why did you do that? But these games have not sold well. They have not sold well at all. And they have not been reviewed well either. Killing it at 66. So I would be looking at Double Fine. I'd say their games aren't selling. And they're not even being reviewed very well. They're not winning awards. So what did we buy this studio for? Especially if we want money. If we want money, why do we have the studio? Next, Ninja Theory. What have they made since being acquired by Microsoft in 2018? Well, I'll tell you their first game. You probably don't remember. It's Bleeding Edge, a multiplayer game, a 66 on Metacritic. Ooh, not a good start, is it? And then Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 at an 81. Which is lower reviewed than the first game, and I played Senua's Saga 2, and I think it sucks. I do not like it is highly disappointing, considering I enjoyed the first game. I think it's nowhere near as good. So, you have Bleeding Edge, this thing that probably bled money and did not review well, and then you have Senua's Saga, which is, yeah, sure, an art piece, but honestly, I think the sequel was not as good, and I don't think anybody played it. I think very few people play that game. Yeah, it seems like a pretty good, like a pretty good studio to kill. Next, and easily the best case for any closure, Compulsion Games. Compulsion Games, which you may know from We Happy Few and South of Midnight, which We Happy Few is why Microsoft bought them. The trailer for We Happy Few was a cinematic trailer that looked a lot like, it had a lot of BioShock vibes to it. It was a great trailer, fantastic trailer. We Happy Few was a horrible game. It was a 62 on Metacritic. It came out broken. It came out with horrific design decisions. It was like a roguelike scavenging survival game. It was not good. It was not good. Even after Microsoft gave it plenty of money to try and fix it, it never really recovered. It was always a bad game. Next, of course, was South of Midnight, which just recently came out and is a 77 on Metacritic, which, hey, is the highest rated game Compulsion has ever made. The other game they made was Contrast, which was in the 60s as well. So, not a very good track record for even making a game that reviews well, yet alone sells well for Compulsion Games. South of Midnight, I am a defender of. I think the game is good. I think it's an 8 out of 10. It is also probably in a very forgettable 8 out of 10. I played the opening hours of it, and I thought it was good. I probably liked it more than a lot of critics did, but still thought that it was not anything to write home about. So Compulsion Games, I'm sorry, there's no argument here. I feel like you can say, oh, well, South of Midnight won a Peabody Award. It's an award-winning game. I'm sorry, bro. It's not a game that's going to sell gangbusters. It's not going to sell gangbusters, and it's not going to be a game that people are going to be excited to play, and it's not even going to review well. So, what's the point of keeping Compulsion around? There's not one. So you have these 3 studios that have really not made a game that's reviewed well since you've bought them, not made a game that has sold well since you bought them. Most of these studios have made games that are outright failures in every regard. Double Fine with Kiln, Ninja Theory with Bleeding Edge, and Compulsion with We Happy Few. So you have a triple threat studio combination here that really has a lot of reason to be shut down. They're not making you money. They're not drawing you Game Pass subscribers. They are not making good games. So why in God's name would you keep them around? The answer is, well, to produce art, to invest in something that could one day be great. And I think with Compulsion Games, I don't think you have a shot there. I think the studio's been flawed from the jump. I think with Ninja Theory, you certainly do, but you need to hone in on them. And you need to say, hey, this is what you're good at. You need to freaking stick with that. You need to really have some people keep a close eye on them to make sure that they're doing what they need to do to be successful. And then Double Fine, oh my gosh, absolutely it needs oversight. Clearly needs oversight. I don't know how they've honestly lasted this long. And so, by the way, Double Fine has been a studio that has had financial issues for a very long time. Double Fine makes some very creative and interesting games. I'll be the first to say that. I love Psychonauts, one of my favorite games ever. I love Psychonauts 2. I love Brutal Legend, and that's a game that I think is very divisive and has a lot of flaws. But like when Double Fine hits, they hit well. And they make some really cool ideas and some really great games. But they make a lot of games that nobody gives a frick about, that people don't think are fun or are interesting, and they're smaller in between titles. And some of their even big titles people don't give a frick about. Psychonauts notoriously failed when it released. It was a massive failure. So, I mean, there's a reason Psychonauts 2 took, decades to develop. It wasn't because it was an active development. It's because they couldn't find anybody who wanted to invest in the idea. There was no money behind it. So, I mean, they make a bunch of niche games, and most of them don't sell very well, and some of them aren't even fun. So Why would you keep Double Fine around? I think it's an incredible investment that they are an incredible statement that they even bought them in the first place, to be quite frank. So these are all obvious. I think Arcane looks pretty obvious too. If you're looking around, what does it mean? It means moving forward, all Microsoft cares about is massive IPs. Massive IPs. That's all we care about. If you are a game that is a big deal, then you're going to stick around, which is Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Halo, and Gears. And let's be real. Looking at that list, who the frick cares about Halo or Gears anymore? Like, they have done a very good job about diminishing any excitement that anybody really has for these series. Halo has been mismanaged. I think most hardcore Halo freaks will tell you, like, who really cares about Halo now? They care about maybe Halo 2 and 3, but they don't care about the newer games. Halo 4 and 5 and Infinite. Like, who's really talking about those? Who's, like, looking at those with rose-tinted glasses? Those are some of my favorite games ever. Nobody. Gears, where has Gears been? It's been absent for many, many years. Not only that, but 4 and 5, I think, were met with, like, oh, yeah, it's another Gears game. I don't think anybody was particularly enthused with Gears 4 and 5, and I think EA looks like kind of more of the same. It really looks like another Gears of War game, which, hey, maybe isn't a problem, but it's certainly not going to bring you back to the forefront of the console wars. It's just, oh, more of that. And then Elder Scrolls has been in, oblivion, no pun intended, for the past 8 years. It was announced, and then we haven't heard a peep of it since. Fallout, I think, has always been Bethesda's, like, B tier, like, RPG series, but with the new Fallout, like, television series, it's become a huge success. So, what else do they have? So they have 4 series, 2 of which they bought. Technically, they bought all of Activision, but all of Activision, guess what, is all multi-platform. Activision is producing nothing for them that is unique or exclusive to them, because you're not going to make World of Warcraft a console exclusive to Xbox, and you can't make, they're legally not allowed to make Call of Duty a console exclusive to Xbox. That, and it would be way too of a financial commitment to make Call of Duty a Game Pass or Xbox exclusive, because they would be losing all the sales on PlayStation, which is the predominant source of income for that series. That's where most people buy it. So what are you going to do? You can't really do anything with that. So Activision really, and then of course they have like King for like Candy Crush and stuff, but obviously you're not going to make Candy Crush a freaking Xbox console exclusive. You'd be insane to do that. To pull it off of iOS and hope that my mom is going to buy an Xbox to play Candy Crush? Heck no. Obviously not going to happen. So it's a fool's errand, it feels like, to assume that these 3 or 4 franchises will be enough to make Xbox a big deal. They simply don't have anything else. And I don't know how you get something else. Which then leads us to our topics of discussion. So, what in God's name could bring someone back to Xbox? That seems to be what Xbox is trying to do. We are now one of the consoles again. We're not a publisher anymore. We were trying to move that way. We're now a console guy. We want you to buy our console. These games are going to be exclusive to console. So you need to come to us and you need to buy our console in order to play them. I think you got to be crazy to go back. I think you have to be kind of insane after being thrown for such a loop as an Xbox player to go back to Xbox. Why would you do it? They just basically they just told you, oh yeah, well, our business strategy for moving forward as a publisher is Xbox as a console doesn't matter anymore. So everything you've invested into this ecosystem does not matter anymore. You really should have probably just bought a PlayStation from the jump or gotten a PC, because, like, really, this is not our main focus. It's really just producing the games and Game Pass. I can't even imagine if Sony did that. I have most of my games wrapped up in the Sony ecosystem. If they were like, oh yeah, like pretty much it's all past news. Nobody cares about that anymore. It's like, a what? No, I care. I care about that. If I was an Xbox player, I would feel incredibly hurt by the Xbox ecosystem, and I would be looking at it and I would say, what in God's name is going to be bringing people back to this? And I think the answer is there's not a very good answer. Are you going to go back to play Halo, which is far beyond its glory days? Are you going to go back to play Gears, which just seems like more Gears? Are you going to go back to play Bethesda games, which we have to assume are still going to come to PlayStation as well? Because Starfield did not do very well. I think Starfield bombed. So, or at least comparative to what they were expecting from a Bethesda like space RPG, comparative to Fallout or Elder Scrolls, which are both massive successes. I can't imagine an incentive that would bring people back to the platform. There just simply isn't one. Like, this exclusive pivot just seems like a half measure almost. Like is an exclusive truly what makes people buy a console? And I don't even know if that's true anymore. Like, really? When I look at like my PlayStation, do I look at my exclusives that I have for the PlayStation and say, well, that's where I got my money's worth? Not really. Like, I look at the exclusives are as a nice to have. You know, Ghost of Yotei was great. You know, Returnal's great. Ratchet and Clank is great. Do I think that most of my time on my PlayStation 5 has been with Sony exclusive IP? Absolutely not. They've hardly put out any this generation. So I've been playing mostly third-party games, indie games. That's where most of my value has come from with my console. But I can technically play that on any platform. Most platforms, at least PC, that's available to everybody. So is an exclusive truly what brings you to a console? I don't know anymore. Like maybe a Nintendo platform. That's about it. That's probably the only platform that can justify selling itself only off of exclusives. But, you know, technically you have the ability to play portably there. So there's an added incentive to have a Switch beyond just that. But now you have, like I've said in previous episodes, you know, you have PC handhelds and stuff like that. So if you really had to play handheld gaming somewhere, you could do it other than the Switch. It's not an exclusive thing that they have on you. So in this case, I just genuinely don't see that as a big enough incentive to come back to Xbox, especially when most of the games that they have coming out are still going to be console exclusive or not console exclusive and coming to other platforms. The only ones they have are Gears and Clockwork. And let's be real, I don't think Clockwork was ever going to be some huge system seller. And I think Gears is a big deal, but like I don't think it's a big enough deal to bring people who aren't already massive like Xbox fanboys back, who have a big connection nostalgically to Gears. I think that's your main audience for Gears at this point. It's not enough to bring in a new audience, I think. I think a third-person action game cover-based shooter is like kind of passé at this point, and it's just not going to be something that's going to excite people into buying a console. So I don't think exclusives are enough. And do people even still care about these tentpole franchises? I've kind of already covered that, but I don't know. This is one of those things that Xbox. I don't think they have the political capital for this. I don't think they have the exclusives for this. I don't think they don't have the infrastructure for this. Like why would anybody go back to buying an Xbox when at this point they've demonstrated that they are not very sure what they're doing. They are willing to throw you under the bus as a consumer for the business. You probably have an infrastructure of or a large library of games that are tied to another platform at this point, whether it be PC or PlayStation or Nintendo. Like, why would you go back? Why would you want to invest in this platform that seems to have been flailing and dying and actively so. Like, they wanted it to die for so long. It doesn't make sense. And the closure of these studios are horrible. Absolutely feel for everybody losing their job. 100%. I hope that some of these studios can be sold off or buy themselves back. I think Ninja Theory has a chance. I think it's honestly a very long chance. Like, I don't think it's likely going to happen. But I think Ninja Theory can possibly sell themselves. I think Double Fine has a chance, a much stronger chance. Tim Schafer has always been very good about finding funds and getting support. I do not see Compulsion surviving this. Like, there's almost a 0% chance. Nobody is going to want them. And I don't think Compulsion can survive on their own. And I don't think that Compulsive has the money to buy themselves back. So the Compulsion's easily dead. I think you have probably like a 25% chance that like Ninja Theory survives this. 25, I give them. Those are the odds. And then I think Double Fine, you have like maybe 60%. 60% chance they make it. That's my take. Maybe Double Fine has something cooking that they've been working on besides these smaller projects that they can possibly pitch to an investor and be like, you buy us, you get this game. That's potential. Or you give us enough money to get us on our feet, and then you get this game. That's a potential. But I think that most people are going to be looking at the reason why did Microsoft not want you? Well, because you didn't make money. Oh, well, I don't think I want that either. Why would I buy that? Like, that doesn't make sense. From a business perspective, why would somebody buy something that isn't making money and isn't demonstrated to make money? And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. So I think these studios are going to have a long uphill battle ahead of them to survive. And I think more studios are going to be announced. I'm sure in the next hour or two before I upload this, somebody else has been put on the chopping block. I think Arcane is going to have a tough time. I think, they are really looking to downsize in a way that I think makes sense financially. Financially, it makes sense as a publisher or as a brand that wants to be a major competitor within the Xbox ecosystem, like the console system. Like, they want to be another major console. They want people to buy an Xbox. I don't know if they have what it takes anymore. I don't know if they can do that. And God be with them, man. I mean, I think competition is great. I think Sony was kind of honestly falling back and probably like laying on their laurels a little bit too much. And I think Microsoft really could have snapped them out of it. But I don't know. This is just such a horrible situation. It seems like it was inevitable when Phil Spencer announced they were buying all those studios. But unfortunately, that's where we lie. Is Xbox is getting rid of a lot of storied studios at this point, which is just sad. All right, enough with the news. Let's get on to impressions. So, I'm going to go through. I've been playing a bit of a little stuff, I guess. A little bit of a lot of stuff is probably the best way of saying it. I have finished a game, which is Baby Steps, which I'll get into in a minute. But most recently, I've been playing a lot of Steam Next Fest demos. Every few months, Steam does Next Fest, which allows players to play demos for games that aren't even out yet, which is really cool, and I like that a lot. So gives you a chance to try out some new games and see what's coming out on the horizon, and maybe wish list a few of your favorites. In this case, I have not played anything that's really spoken to me. A lot of these are smaller indie games that I played, and I was like, I kind of got a feel for it, and I was like, oh, I know what that is now, and I know I don't need to spend money on it. I have a lot of other games I can play. You have to be a really special indie game to really kind of be up my alley, I suppose. Because there's just so many, like I said earlier, so many great games out there that it's hard to really justify spending your time on like a $15 indie game that's just like kind of a gimmick game. So anyways, I've been going through a lot of those. Star Fox, I played the new Star Fox demo. This was not obviously on Steam Next Fest. This is on Nintendo Switch. And it's actually pretty freaking solid. I actually like it a lot. I don't know if it is worth $50 from the jump, mainly because I know that they're not adding anything to it, at least anything that I care about. I know there's like multiplayer and stuff like that in there now, but it's a remake of the original Star Fox game, which is about a 3 or 4 hour game, which for $50 is just kind of a hard sell. It's hard for me to really justify it, even though I actually did think the game was very well made and polished and cool while I was playing it. I don't necessarily see myself playing $50 for it. Normally, I would just pay $50 because it's like, well, it's a Nintendo game, it's never going down in price. But recently, I feel like I've seen more Nintendo games go down in price than usual. I'm used to, oh, well, these things literally never go down in price. But if it's not one of the more tentpole games for Nintendo, then then they've been putting it on sale, at least at some point. Like, more specifically, Metroid Prime 4 has been on sale, which I bought full price because I was like, oh, that's never going to go on sale. But then I've seen it go on sale in some places for like $40. And it's like, oh, well, I could have saved money there. And I still haven't played Metroid Prime 4, but I have it day one. But I've seen a lot more. Mario Brotherhood, that RPG with Mario and Luigi. I got that for $10 at GameStop. Same thing for Super Mario RPG, the remake of Super Mario RPG. I got it for $10 at GameStop. It's just one of those things that if you're looking for a deal, some of these Nintendo games you're able to pick them up if they're not like one of the most well sought after games on the platform. Like Mario Kart 8, Mario Kart World is never going to be on sale ever. Breath of the Wild is never going to be on sale ever, and that game's obviously like a decade plus old or whatever. So like that kind of stuff you're never going to see on sale, but you will probably see Star Fox on sale at some point in the future. So I'll probably just scoop it up then because I'm not in any rush to play a remake of a game that just doesn't seem to be changing that much. So I enjoyed it overall though, and I'll definitely get around to it eventually. It's just not on the top of my to-do list right now. I played Amsterdam 1666. This was the demo that was dropped during the Summer Games Fest presentation from the Assassin's Creed director, which was about a witch. And it is not supposed to run on Steam Deck. I'll tell you that much. This was probably the first time I ever played anything on Steam Deck that I was like, oh, frick. Yeah, this is not supported. Most games I play on Steam Deck are like small indie games, and it's really easy to run them on a Steam Deck. And not so with 1666. It is really, really choppy, looks horrible. It is not something I would recommend at all playing on the Steam Deck, but in general, it's literally just a teaser for the game. I did not feel like I learned much about what the game is about at all. There is no combat in the game at all. There is no real, what I assume is actual gameplay from the game. It is just kind of walking around and seeing the story happen. There's like one or two little puzzles, but in general, it's really just supposed to whet your appetite for the story of the game, which I didn't necessarily felt super enthused by either. So I can't say I would like super recommend 1666. I played Impulse, which is a first person shooter. You cannot play online with it. So I was just playing against some bots and basically feeling out the systems. It's supposed to be like Titanfall. It's one of the more popular demos out there on Steam Next Fest right now. It's not for me no matter how you slice it, but I do love Titanfall movement, and this has that. It feels satisfying enough. It's just a matter of if there's enough out there that will entice players to pick it up and actually play it. I played IGTAP, which stands for Incremental Game That's Also a Platformer. So I like platformers, and I somehow force myself to play incremental games. So if you're not familiar with incremental games, that's like Cookie Clicker, where numbers continuously go up over time. In this case, IGTAP, you're playing as like just a circle with legs, and you're kind of running around like a factory and just trying to do platforming challenges in order to get higher numbers, really. And you're like, well, how would that work? And it's like, well, if you do a platforming challenge, you'll get the ability to summon a clone for a specific amount of points. And then that clone will mimic your best run of that particular platforming challenge. And then you'll be able to make more clones, and then you'll be able to increase the number that each clone gets when it does that platforming challenge. And so you can continue to do that platforming challenge and make it even faster so that you can get even more points from your clones going in it. So there is incentive to continue to do these platforming challenges over and over again. The thing is, I don't think that the platforming challenges were particularly interesting. And at a certain point, there is no point. Like, you've done your best in terms of a run for the challenge, and you're just like, okay, at this point, I'm just going to sit here and wait for my clones to go through it, and it just becomes another incremental game. So I don't know. It's a really interesting idea, and I think they have some really cool ways of executing on it. It's just hard for me to see myself wanting to play it for a long period of time, I guess. I'd much rather just have a better incremental game or a better platformer, not both. I played Penguin Colony. I saw Wario64 tweeting this out. It is a kind of artsy-fartsy game about penguins that find a Nazi colony in the Arctic, and the Nazis are trying to basically like summon some kind of Cthulhu monster or supernatural force. Cool. It is a very interesting demo. I didn't think it was very fun to playing as the penguin, but I did think that the idea behind it, the voice acting in it, is all really cool and interesting and well done. So I don't know how much I'll continue to play that, but it is an interesting idea nonetheless. Screenbound is one I am surprised did not click with me. It's a platformer that you play as a 2D and 3D space. And you're like, what the frick does that mean, Henry? It means you're holding like a Game Boy, and you can see your character through the 2D plane of the Game Boy, but you're also running around in a 3D platforming area, and some things are only interactable in the 2D plane, and some things are only interactable in the 3D plane. It's a really interesting idea, and it's something that I didn't think was executed on super well. It really felt like they had excuses for you to be looking at a 2D plane or for instance, in the 3D plane, some doors are just not visible. You can't see them. So the only way you can see the door is if you're looking at the 2D plane. And then you can enter the door because you know it's there. And in my opinion, that seems just forced. It seems ham-fisted as a mechanic that doesn't need to be there. And if that's all that it really ends up being, while it is a cool idea conceptually, if you can't do more than just, well, you're really just looking at the same thing twice in two different ways, then it's not really worth playing, in my opinion. So that really didn't click with me as much as I really wanted it to. I also played Truck-kun is Supporting Me from Another World. I am a big anime fan, so this immediately stuck out to me. This is a very fun arcadey racing game where you're running around and you are trying to run over people to send to an isekai world, so like a fantasy world, so that a girl that you ran over, because you are the truck driver in this game, because the girl that you ran over is needing to level up to fight the demon lord in this reincarnated world that she's in. It is obviously making fun of anime, specifically the isekai genre, which deserves to be made fun of, and it is very tropic. A lot of tropes within that particular series that float around the anime community. So it's very fun in that regard. But in general, it's honestly a really fun arcadey driving game where drifting is super fun and you're going over these massive ramps and loops and jumps and running over people and boosting into objects. And I really enjoyed it. I genuinely enjoyed it. It is run based. So like as you run over things, you get extra seconds added to the clock, and your run ends when you run out of time. I'm kind of anti-roguelike, and I'm kind of anti-timer. If your game is running on a timer, that's already like a turnoff. It's always been a turnoff for me since I was like a very young gamer. And in this case, that's like my biggest hang up. if the game was structured differently design wise, I think this game would honestly be one of my favorite games I played during Steam Next Fest. But in general, it's still very, very fun, and I'll keep my eye on it, but not like a must buy or anything, unfortunately. Next was Well Dweller, which is like a Metroidvania, very Silk Song esque, where you play as a bird. The bird is in a kingdom in which the queen she's hunted down all the birds and she's killed them all, and so this is the last bird family left. And honestly, the more that I played it, the more I enjoyed it. It seems like a really solid Metroidvania with good mechanics and fun traversal. And I'm not going to say it's going to be beating out Silk Song or anything, but in general, I actually enjoyed my time with it, and a lot more than I thought. And the art style's pretty nice, and the combat's fun, and I think that there's definitely something to look forward to here if you're really into big Metroidvania type games like a Silk Song. So definitely check out Well Dweller. Next was Valor Mortis, which you probably have heard of. It's from the director of Ghost Runner, and it is like you're playing as like a Napoleonic soldier, and like you're listening to Napoleon. That was like one of the big reveals at the Game Awards, not the Game Awards, Summer Games Fest this year, was that there's like some actor that I'm not familiar with that plays Napoleon within the game. So very cool there, I guess, if you like that actor. But in this case, it is a Souls-like / Bioshock game, and it is balls hard. I did get to the final boss of the demo, but I refused to beat the boss because I was like, it's been a pain to get to this point. I do not have the patience to fight this boss at all, especially when I already know this game isn't for me because it's so hard. It has Souls-like elements, so you're going from, one checkpoint to another, but you're going around and it's like you're essentially on the battlefield of a Napoleonic era war where you have a bunch of French soldiers' corpses just littered around the place, and then some of them are like zombies. And you get like Bioshock powers, so you get the ability to shoot flames from your hands, and you have most of your combat is via sword and parry and dodge. And enemies hit hard and they hit often. So you are always on the brink of death, and I died a lot in this demo. I've heard mixed reception to this demo, and in my opinion, it's just way too hard. It's just way too hard. So F that game. I'm not touching Valor Mortis when it comes out. No shot. Another one I played was Order of the Sinking Star, which is the Jonathan Blow game, which you may know from The Witness or Braid. It's his new game, which he is touting as like 400 hours of puzzles or some nonsense. Something crazy. Way too much content in here, and it's enough to scare me off. I'm also not smart enough to play puzzle games. I'm dumb as a rock. So I don't like puzzle games at all. I, however, do respect the design around Braid and The Witness. I think they're very well designed puzzle games, and the Order of the Sinking Star is no different. I genuinely, even as somebody who is not good at puzzle games and doesn't typically seek them out, I saw the potential within Order of the Sinking Star playing the game. You play as multiple different characters that all have various different abilities in moving things around. So like one guy, he teleports with objects, but only when he's looking at them. And then another one only pulls objects, and then another one only pushes objects, but can push multiple objects at the same time. And you're working with these characters in tandem to try and get to the exits of various levels within the game. I never felt stumped, but always felt like the puzzles were challenging. And I always felt like I could do it, but I knew that I'd have to use my brain. And I feel like that's the perfect balance of what a puzzle game needs to be. Like, you don't have to pull out a pen and paper and really study the freaking thing in order to do it. Like, if you just try hard enough, you can probably get to the puzzle ending, and you can be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I understand why that worked. Yeah, that's a solid puzzle. I'm glad I figured that out. Like, I feel like that's the perfect puzzle balance. And for the demo, I felt like I was constantly hitting that rhythm with most of the puzzles in the game. So I think as long as you're into puzzles, this game looks amazing. Who knows if it'll actually hit 2026? Jonathan Blow says it will, but I don't know. You never know nowadays. So we'll see. Order of the Sinking Star, though, very impressed with its demo. And the final demo I played, and I still have a couple of demos that I'm like trying to play as we're going here, but that I haven't gotten around to at time of recording. But in this case was Echoes of Aincrad, which is a Sword Art Online game. Oh my god. So Sword Art Online is one of those weird things where it's like, why has this not been made into a good video game yet? Because it's literally just a video game. Like Sword Art Online is literally an anime about going into a video game. Why can't we just do that? And for some reason, every Sword Art Online game that's been made has been garbage. They've never been good. Even I'm a reluctant Sword Art Online enjoyer. Certainly a flawed series, but a very popular one, and one that scratches an itch for me for sure in ways that I'm ashamed to say it does. And in that way, like the original game is so bad. Like I have a friend who's super diehard into Sword Art Online, and I was like, oh yeah, like at one point the game was on sale for like $3 and we both picked it up and we were both like, yeah, this is embarrassing. This is really bad. Like, I don't know why they thought, like, you had such a popular series and you had such an obvious setup for the series, like for a game. Why in God's name did you make it so bad? Like, how could you have dropped the ball that hard? And it feels like Echoes of Aincrad is the first Sword Art Online game where they actually are trying. It felt like every other Sword Art Online game was minimal budget, and they were just kind of pumping it out because it was an anime game, and no anime game ever has like a strong budget behind it. So like this case, it actually feels like that. Like you are playing as a character that is for the demo in the beta. So that is before the events of the main game. I'm sure it will eventually transition into the main game. But you're playing in the beta, and you're playing in Aincrad, which is where the game / Sword Art Online first season takes place. So it is more of a Dark Souls game. I thought the dungeons were way too long in the demo. I felt like they were going on and stretching on for way too long. But comparative to every other Sword Art Online game here, budget seems good. There is voice acting, English voice acting in these games that is pretty freaking good and pretty thorough throughout the game. The world you are going in feels like, oh, I'm actually in Sword Art Online, the game. Like, which is, I feel like the bare minimum you need to hit, especially when Sword Art Online is just kind of a generic video game in general in its setting. So I feel like it shouldn't be that hard to try and replicate like Aincrad from Sword Art Online. That doesn't seem like a very huge task, but they do that in this game. The combat itself is Dark Souls-ish, which makes kind of sense for a Sword Art Online video game. It's meant to be very brutal and deadly and, high intensity per se, life or death, which kind of strikes me as a Dark Souls kind of combat system. So I, in general, was very pleased with the demo as somebody who thought they have dropped the ball so hard with Sword Art Online. Am I going to play this game? Heck no. No way. This game still seems kind of mid. It still looks like maybe a 7.5, 8 out of 10 tops. But like comparative to the previous Sword Art Online games that were like freaking maybe 5s or 6s, this is way leagues better. The fact that they're making anything remotely consumable is pleasant to me. So that's every anime game ever made. It just seems to always be that way. Okay, now that we're 2.5 hours in, let's get to the main impression segment, shall we? And that main impression segment is about baby steps. Baby steps. I know you are just on the edge of your seat to hear me talk about baby steps, mainly because this was a pretty successful game last year. It is from Devolver Digital and from the minds of Bennett Foddy and some other developer who I forget the name of and didn't do Getting Over It. So Getting Over It is not the only thing that Bennett Foddy made. He also made QWOP, which you may remember from a browser game you played in the computer lab as a child, where you control a runner and your only keys are QWOP, Q, W, O, and P, and it's basically comedy games. It's games that are meant to be frustratingly hard and almost be goofy to control in their entirety. And Baby Steps is no different. where you play as a fat loser who is transported to a wacky world that makes no sense, and you must walk. You must walk to the other end of the world for no real reason other than just because, and you are controlling each individual leg of the character. So, if you hold down R2, he will lift his right leg, and then you will move the analog stick forward, and depending on how much forward you hold the analog stick, he will move his foot forward. And then when you release, he will put his foot down. And the same thing for the left foot. And then you do that over and over. Every single step, you must press L2, move the analog stick forward, R2, put it down, R2, move the analog stick forward, put it down. Like, that is every single step in this game, and it is very precise. So if you hold the analog stick too far forward, he will fall. If you do not move the analog stick forward enough, he will not move. If you move the analog stick too far to the left or the right, he will get crossed up and he will fall. And you will have to stop, and you will have to realign, and you will have to wait for the player to get up. And it is meant to be incredibly obnoxious. It is meant to be incredibly frustrating, and it is meant to want to make you blow your brains out. It is really a streamer game, more so than anything. You are supposed to watch a streamer play this and watch them go insane, and that is supposed to be the experience of this game. And you're saying, Henry, that sounds like the absolute opposite kind of experience that you would ever want to play ever in your life. Why in God's name did you touch this game with a 10-foot pole? Friends, let me tell you, I was tricked. So I often listen to a various swath of Game of the Year award content because I want to hear. There's no way I can get around to playing every game, and there's not even a way I can really get around to hearing about every game. So I want to hear what everybody else who is a professional, and that's what their job is to play video games for a living, and because they have more time than I do to do it, certainly, what they think that the best games of the year are. So I was listening to the Min-Max podcast. Min-Max is I think it was a bunch of Game Informer people that left and went off to do their own outlet, and Min-Max is what they ended up making. Min-Max is pretty well respected in general. They do some interviews with developers and general coverage pretty regularly. They're fairly successful. But their Game of the Year awards work in a very specific way. They do not go by like, oh, well, as a consensus, as an outlet, this is what we believe the number 1, 2, 3, 4 game is, right? The way they do it is they all get on a stream or a call or whatever you want to say, and they say, hey, if you can be most passionate about a game, that game will be the top game. You know, if you can make an argument the most passionately, then that is what makes the game go higher up in the list, which is obviously not a correct way of doing your list, but one of the pundits at Min-Max made the argument that Baby Steps was his favorite game of all time. That it was a transcendent experience that spoke to him on a spiritual level, and he was completely freaking serious. And he was like, I've played the game 30 times, and every time I play it, I feel like I'm experiencing something new, and it's one of the best games I've ever played, and oh my gosh, like, everybody should play this game. And everybody else was like, what the frick? Like, there's no way Baby Steps is in the top 10 list. And he was like, I refuse to die on this hill. I will let every other game that I am trying to support fall to the wayside. I will only try and push Baby Steps for the rest of this podcast. And they were like, okay, well, if that's the case, then this is in the top 10 games of the year because this guy is so passionate about it. And so hearing that, I was like, if this guy is correct, and if Baby Steps has even a chance of being this transcendent experience that makes me feel some way I've never felt before, and is one of the best games I've ever played in my entire life, and truly is trying to communicate some kind of massive point that only this medium could portray, then I have to play it. I have to play it. And so I was like, it's only about 8 hours, and it did. It took me about 9 hours to complete fully. I have to give it a shot. And so I did. It was on sale, and I think for like $10. And I was like, yeah, sure. 50% off, $10. It's worth it if this game is the best game of all time. So I started playing it, and my initial experience with it was frustration because I couldn't figure out how to walk. It's obviously very difficult. It's meant to be very difficult. And I was like, I just can't figure out how to freaking walk. I would fall all the time. It felt like I was making hardly any progress. The smallest things would make me fall or trip me up, and I'd be like, oh, frick. Like, I have to, it's so frustrating having to wait for the player to fall down and then get back up and then start over again. After about an hour, maybe an hour and a half of really brute forcing, and I think in a lot of circumstances, I would have given up on baby steps. In any other circumstance, I think I would have easily been like, this is frustrating, and I got a million other games to play, bye. And I would have immediately uninstalled it. But because I was told this game is one of the best games I've ever played, it's one of the best games of all time, I was like, I have to see it through. It's not that much of a commitment. I'm going to try. I'm really going to give it my all here. And I eventually got walking down for the most part. I was pretty good at it after like an hour and a half of really trying to figure it out. So, baby steps, from what I was told, this game was pretty divisive, and some people said it was really good, honestly. And what the incentive here for baby steps is there's comedy. So every so often you'll come across a cutscene done by Bennett Foddy and whoever else made this game. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. And they are basically bantering. It is improv comedy. It makes no sense. It most of the time is not super funny, and like it is just kind of wacky, random humor that doesn't normally make a lot of sense or have much to do with anything that's going on. And hey, like it's at least something for your trouble, right? So as you continue, you will get those cutscenes if you come across them. This is a very large open area that you are traversing, and if you fall, oftentimes you will lose half an hour's worth of progress. You will be sent back to if you're at the top of a hill, there can sometimes be slopes that if you fall on them, you will go all the way back to the bottom of the hill, and you will have to traverse all the way back to the top of it. You'll have to walk all the way back. And because the traversal in this game sucks so much, which it's intended to, that is such a horrific loss when you lose. It is so bad. And so the way that I had heard people kind of justify it in this game is critics, when I read reviews and I heard people defending this game, would say, oh, well, when you fall, it just means that you can fall and you'll go up a different path. And when you go up a different path, you'll maybe see some new comical thing, you'll see some new cutscene, or you'll see some new weird thing in the world or something like that. And that will be your reward for having gone through all that pain. And I'm like, honestly, that's a really smart way of doing it, is having so many different, because like in getting over it, there's one path. You don't get up another way. You go up one way, and that's pretty much it. And in baby steps, it seemed to be implied that, oh, well, there's so much to do, there's so much to see, and you're going to, if you fall down, you can just go down a different path, and then you'll see something really cool. And it's like, oh, of course. Well, then that makes this, honestly, I don't think I mind it that much if I fall, because in general, it will be some new content that I get to experience within the game. So that's honestly the best way of going about making a game like this. That's honestly genius. I was like, that's genius. And the first area, I kind of was really trying to lean into the game and be like, oh yeah, like this is exactly what people said. Like I see why people were defending it so much. Because there are like alternate paths you can take, and there are optional content. There is optional content that you can completely walk past, and cutscenes that you can miss and stuff like that. And the game even like pokes fun at you for that throughout the game as well. But in general, there's not that much of it. Like there is, certainly. There is missable content, there is interesting stuff in the world that you can do, but for the most part, just walking around, There is not that much extra stuff. And certainly not enough for me to be like, oh, well, it was totally worth me losing 30 minutes of progress because I fell down that hill. Like, no way. I certainly do not agree with that. So I kind of thought I was kind of trying to look at it from an optimistic perspective because I wasn't fully exploring the game because traversal is so horrible that why would you? You're putting yourself through misery going anywhere in that game. So of course you're not going to want to continue to walk and like explore. Like in most games, you just hold forward and you go somewhere, right? But like in this game, it is a trial to go anywhere. So of course you're just going to be trying to mainline the game. You're not going to be trying to see all this extra stuff. And a lot of this extra stuff, even if you see it and you get to it, you then have to do some horrific trial that you have to like climb a really ridiculously constructed tower that's intended to be very difficult, or you have to walk across like a long beam or something like that if you make a single mistake you're going to be losing like hours of content, not just like a little bit but like a lot of content. So there's just simply not a lot of incentive as a player for you to want to push through these things. And I didn't. So, and I think a lot of players haven't. So I at some point I was just like, I am just mainlining this game because I was like, I know it's not worth it. About halfway through the game, I figured out how the game worked. And I was like, okay, there's really not that much extra content in the game. And there's really the content that I'm seeing isn't really worth it. Like for instance, I would go through some of the hardest platforming challenges in the game, some of the hardest traversal challenges in the game. And at the end of it, you would eat a banana. And the whole joke is just the character going, oh, it's a banana. I love bananas. Bananas are so good. And you get like a 10-second cutscene of just the character screaming that. And that's your reward. And I was like, oh, I definitely don't need that. Like, I don't require that. The joke is funny. Like, I went through all this horrible work and I put myself through so much stress moving through these horrible environments and putting myself, probably failing multiple times and losing a lot of progress to just get a cutscene that's wacky and goofy and doesn't mean anything. And I don't get anything specific in the game. And it's really a throwaway cutscene that I shouldn't have really ever cared about. And that's the joke, is like this game constantly is flipping you off. This is the biggest middle finger of a game I've ever played in my entire life. It actively is just flipping you off and laughing about it. There is a 30-minute cutscene at the end of the game. That you don't have I didn't get it. But if you skip every cutscene in the game, they will make you sit through an unskippable 30-minute cutscene about how the player should not have skipped cutscenes throughout the game. And as a person who has not played the game, that sounds hilarious, right? That sounds so funny. It's like I can't believe that they actually did that, Obviously that's freaking funny. But as somebody who's actively going through it, as somebody who's playing the game and it is obviously meant to just piss you off and be a douchebag, like, I don't think it's worth it. I would much rather just watch that cutscene play out online. Like, make somebody else go through that nonsense, and then I will just watch a compilation of it on YouTube. The funniest part is I do not think all of the content for this game is on YouTube, because I do not think anybody really wants to sit through this game and go through every single platforming challenge that is intended to be incredibly difficult and force yourself through that and go through every single bit of it just to get those cutscenes and gather them and show them off online. I genuinely think that if you go on YouTube and you try to find all the cutscenes and all the whatever funny bits from this game, you will not find them all. I know because I went back and I tried to look at them on YouTube and I could not. I felt like I was like, there's no way this is all of them. There's no way. So this game is a big middle finger. It's a big middle finger to you, and I have to say that I felt like I was being tricked into thinking the game was good for a very long time. So probably about halfway through the game, I realized I was not having fun. And up to that point, I was like, "Oh no, this is like the Dark Souls of traversal games." Like this, I'm just going through and admittedly, there is like they actually do make fun of Dark Souls. One of the hardest areas in Dark Souls 1 is the Poison Swamp, and every area in this game is named the Poison something. So like the Poison Hills, the Poison Mountain, the Poison Desert, like all of those are essentially like areas, and it's a reference obviously to Dark Souls, that like everything here is meant to be brutally difficult. But regardless, that first half of the game, I feel like I kind of was tricking myself into being, not even the first half, but the first few hours, that I was kind of tricking myself, like I had first kind of gotten frustrated with the mechanics of how to walk, and I had figured it out. And I was like, oh, now I'm a master at walking around. Oh, this is great. And then I was like, well, maybe that's the whole point of the game, is like overcoming these really horrific obstacles and pushing through and persevering. And that's why this guy really loved this game. And I ended up halfway through the game being like, no, this game is just trying to piss me off. Like, there is no art piece moment that, like, oh, this is like a game all about this, that, or the other. It really is just a game that ultimately, at the end of the day, is trying to flip you off. And that is, I think there are moments in this game that it tries to kind of be like, no, actually there is like an underlying meaning to this, and there is like a theme. And I do think that there is. You can certainly find that here. But I think overall, the vast majority of this game is just trying to flip you off. And if you are looking at baby steps, and if you are saying, maybe I can get some enjoyment out of this game, I think the obvious answer to me is just watch somebody play it. Watch somebody play it, because I think that's what this game was designed to be, is for you to watch somebody play it, and for you to watch them get mad, and for you to then be like, well, that was a funny stream that I don't have to endure. If you genuinely just want to suffer, sure, play baby steps. But I think that it is not worth it in the long run. It is not a game I would recommend. Like, there's a lot of games out there that are hard, or there's a lot of games out there that do weird things, and I would at least be like, well, if you like X, Y, and Z, you should play this. I do not feel that way about Baby Steps. I feel like this is a game that is genuinely intended for just people to get mad at on streams. It's a streamer game. And if you actually wanted to play this to have fun, you're just a masochist. Like, that's literally it. You're a masochist. Like, I feel like I could make that argument for Dark Souls, you know? Like, oh, you just like really hard games. Like, I don't think Dark Souls is genuinely trying to piss you off, though. There are times that Dark Souls does, admittedly, they do try to do that. Like, they do try to do some stuff that's just like cheap or not cool. But like, in general, I don't think most of the game does that. Baby Steps is actively trying to do that every step of the way. No pun intended. Is actively trying to piss you off, is actually trying to make your life miserable. And I find that to be funny from a conceptual level. It is genuinely funny, but it is not something that I would want to pay money for. It is not something that I would recommend people pay money for. It is not something that I would recommend people use their time for. I would think that there are so many better games out there where you can actually have fun from beginning to end. I did not find this game to be a transcending experience for me. I would not play it again. I'm not going to say like I regretted every moment with this game or anything like that. Okay? I feel like I'm saying like this game's horrible. It's not. I think the funny thing about this game is I think that it sets out to do what it wants to do expertly. I think from a design standpoint, it is expertly crafted. From a direction standpoint, it is expertly crafted. It set out with a vision, and it said, we want to make a very frustrating game that is meant to just flip off the player and just laugh at them constantly. And this game, magnificently, from beginning to end, top to bottom, gameplay, cutscenes, world design, everything, it succeeds. And I think that if you are willing to look past all that and respect that that's what the joke is, then that's fine. But I think that you'll get something out of it from that. But I do not think that you should play it. I think that you should watch a streamer play it, and you'll get the exact same understanding. You will understand by watching a streamer play it, this game is hard. You will understand by watching a streamer play it. Oh, the way you move around in this game is clumsy and difficult to master. You will watch the streamer and you will understand these cutscenes are funny for whatever reason they're funny. Like, you will get out of the experience the exact same thing just by watching somebody else play it. And I don't know why you would want to do that to yourself, other than just to say you experienced it as well, which is, fine. A lot of people do that. And that's the reason why games, just because the streamer streams it, doesn't mean it's like it fails miserably because, like, well, everybody's already experienced it that. But, like, I would not recommend it. I would not recommend baby steps personally. That's just a me thing. It technically tells a story of somebody overcoming themselves and overcoming the harshities of the world, but I feel like there's better games that communicate that, and certainly not in the most as creative a way as Baby Steps does, but certainly in a way that I feel would be more palatable and more enjoyable, even though that kind of a struggle is never going to be necessarily super fun to communicate via any medium. But in this case, I think it's really not fun. So I did beat it, did get through it, but I by the end of it, I was like, dang, that was an ordeal. My palms were sweaty. I felt like I had to be tense every moment of playing that game. Because, like, if you fall, then you lose so much progress. And it's like, okay, yeah, like I really got to be on my A game playing this 100% of the time. So, like, it was an experience, and it was one that I've never experienced before, but is not one I would recommend. There you go. And that will do it for my impressions. Not only my impressions, but a 3-hour podcast. Gosh darn, I had 2 news stories and 1 game impression, and somehow I made that a 2-hour and 45-minute podcast. Gosh darn. I thought last week's episode was too long. I was exhausted after last week's episode. Had to do it in 2 days, and I still did a 3-hour episode. I don't know how I do it. I talk too much. Thank you for listening to me talk way too much. I appreciate you listening, as always. I appreciate you being around and sticking around, and I hope to call you a friend. Is that overstepping? I hope not. But thank you for being here on another episode of the Plug and Play podcast. Until next time, I hope you play some good video games. Have a good day, good week, good year, and until next time, bye-bye.